Chapter 7:17. Han Fei was not a fool. He got 5,300 caddies of spirit awakening fluid from this batch of sea demons, which certainly aroused his curiosity. Did the sea demons really have so much spirit awakening fluid? Not necessarily. This batch of sea demons should have just robbed the undersea chimney, so even the red demons had spirit awakening fluid. When Lu Renquang called him, he said he was going to deliver supplies. What did it mean that supplies needed to be delivered? It meant that the quantity of these supplies must be very large. So, Han Fei had a guess. The amount of spirit awakening fluid produced by the undersea chimney this time might exceed his imagination, possibly reaching tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of caddies. In addition to the spirit awakening fluid, there might be other things. Otherwise, it couldn't be explained why 2 half-mermaids and a group of red demons and inferior manfish could have so much spirit awakening fluid. However, no matter how large the amount of spirit awakening fluid was, Han Fei planned to invest in himself first this time. First of all, because there were too few mid-quality and high-quality spiritual stones, they were only about 7 million points of spiritual energy. The 2,100 caddies of spiritual spring was even less, only about 2 million points of spiritual energy. Therefore, the spiritual energy he got this time was actually less than 10 million points. On the contrary, there was too much spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei felt that it might be enough to push him to the level of an intermediate hanging fisher. Looking at the spirit awakening fluid in front of him, Han Fei took a deep breath, and immediately opened his mouth and began to drink it crazily. He urgently needed to become stronger now. There couldn't be only one batch of sea demons here. The battle had just ended, and he might have only encountered a small group of sea demons. There were even more that he hadn't met yet, but they should be in the nearby seas. Even though he had used the strengthened version of God of Poison in that small poke just now, he had still lost nearly 30% of his combat strength in a situation where he was not paying attention. If the number of sea demons doubled, or there were a few more half-mermaids, the result might be different. Gulp, gulp. As soon as the spirit awakening fluid entered his body, it immediately disappeared without a trace, as if turning into nothingness. He didn't know whether it dissipated in his limbs and bones, or turned into some kind of power and existed in his body in disguise. When Han Fei drank more than 200 caddies, the black light appeared again. This time, Han Fei didn't take it seriously at all. This thing had appeared from the very beginning, but it disappeared in a flash and did not affect him at all. Even the demon purification pot did not react, which meant that it should not be a big problem. The upper limit of his spiritual energy was slowly increasing. Han Fei felt that his body gradually turned from the feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze and drizzle to numbness. His bones, flesh, veins, everything seemed to be glowing. When Han Fei poured about 600 caddies of spirit awakening fluid in a row, he broke the hurdle of level 45. However, this was not a breakthrough in cultivation. Therefore, it didn't show anything except that the upper limit of his spiritual energy had reached 12,000 points. When Han Fei injected more than 2,100 kilograms of spiritual energy into his body, he broke the minor barrier of level 46, and his upper limit of spiritual energy reached 13,000 points. When Han Fei poured more than 4,800 kilograms, he suddenly realized that the effect of the spirit awakening fluid was slowing down rapidly. Because of the suppression of his realm, the spirit awakening fluid couldn't be improved for the time being. What made Han Fei realize was that something black seemed to be stuck in the bottleneck of his breakthrough. That thing was preventing his strength from continuing to soar. What is this? Han Fei frowned. Isn't this thing appearing a little too frequently? What's in my body? If it's something bad, why doesn't the demon purification pot react at all? Han Fei stopped swallowing and drinking. Maybe he needed to consolidate his strength now. He didn't know if swallowing spirit awakening fluid could improve his strength indefinitely. If it could, Then whoever had spirit awakening fluid would become stronger and stronger, to the point where no one could defeat him or her. Besides, it was said that the spirit awakening fluid itself was actually used to tap one's potential. Wasn't it a bit wrong to crazily use spirit awakening fluid to improve his strength like this? However, Han Fei hadn't confirmed it, so he wasn't sure. He looked at the data and the information popped up. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 46, intermediate hanging fisher, spiritual energy 530-0556-13999, spiritual power 1801-1801, perception range greater than 17,999 meters, spiritual heritage level 5, high quality spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish level 38, main art, void breaking technique, volume 4 of void fishing, demon level, divine quality. Han Fei's eyes suddenly narrowed. Did I break the bottleneck of my spiritual power? I didn't feel anything. Immediately, Han Fei was overjoyed and took out 20 level 2 soul crystals. These were collected by Lu Renquang for him. This guy seemed to have spent a lot of effort to collect 56 level 2 soul crystals. Although it was still far from the 5 million points of credit that Han Fei gave him, Lu Renquang must have put in a lot of effort. After half an hour, Han Fei slowly opened his eyes and frowned. The effect of the spiritual power breakthrough this time was not so obvious. It seemed to be caused by drinking too much spirit awakening fluid. It might also be that his perception also had a bottleneck. This caused his mental strength to stop at 1852 points, and it stagnated. And his perception range just reached 19,999 meters, and then it couldn't go any further. He also reached a bottleneck. However, Han Fei smiled. Even if I reached a bottleneck, so what? His current range of perception had already reached 20 kilometers, which was 40 kilometers. With the range of his senses, he could almost explore the entire skeleton shore by standing on it. Han Fei didn't intend to save the remaining 500 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid. Now he had to increase his strength. Since he couldn't do it himself, he would use Little Black and Little White. 500 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid was fed to Little Black and Little White by Han Fei. Little White's body was already emitting a holy brilliance, but this brilliance only lasted for a while and then disappeared. He didn't even reach level 39. It seems that the production of spirit awakening fluid should be more than I thought. Without tens of thousands of kilograms, it seems a bit unrealistic to increase my strength. This was only true for people like him, who had a lot of opportunities. If others spent points to buy it, how long would it take for them to buy enough spirit awakening fluid? After confirming that nearly an hour had passed, Han Fei appeared directly in the sea. As soon as he came out, Han Fei released his perception. With this perception, he directly found 2 inferior manfish within his perception range. These 2 inferior manfish seemed to be patrolling and seemed to be investigating. Sure enough, I've been discovered. Han Fei thought of something. He must have been discovered when he killed those sea demons. Even though he ran more than 3,000 kilometers away, there were still inferior manfish patrolling over. He set up a stealth array and a breath concealing array for himself, and then with a flash between his eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Little Black, go kill them. If it was a red demon, Han Fei definitely wouldn't let Little Black kill them. But if it was just an inferior manfish, Han Fei wanted to see the current strength of Little Black and Little White. Even if Little Black couldn't kill them at once, he could still kill them. Although this place would soon be discovered after killing the inferior manfish, Han Fei had to do this. In the water, Little White's tracking ability was unparalleled. But outside the sea, Little White's tracking ability would be greatly reduced. After all, it was a fish. Although it could still survive out of the water, its tracking ability would be reduced. Besides, unless it floated to a height of 1,000 meters or even higher, it couldn't really avoid the perception of the sea demons. Otherwise, they weren't fools. Who wouldn't know how to sense it? The perception range of a half-mermaid was not small at all. Imagine, at an altitude of thousands of meters, how could he let Little White track him? The two inferior manfish were only less than 10 kilometers away from each other. Little Black pounced on the closest one, and Han Fei slowly moved to the middle of the two, so that he could catch up with it later. The inferior manfish that could appear in the deep sea were actually not weak. It was just that their demonic heritage was relatively low, so their perception was not good, so they were relatively stupid. The inferior manfish that Little Black was staring at leaned forward and was swimming slowly in the water. From time to time, it scratched its arms and shoulders with its long webbed claws. Because the inferior manfish had not fully evolved, there were fin-like fins on both sides of its arms, legs, and back, which were sharp and long, so Little Black had to circle around to find a good place to bite. So Little Black chose the neck. In its view, that place was the most vulnerable. The inferior manfish seemed to feel something was wrong and suddenly looked back, but it saw nothing. But when it looked back, it suddenly felt the water ripples in front of it. It was about to make a sound, but its neck was bitten off by a big bloody mouth. It was bitten off, not bitten. Even Han Fei was a little shocked by Little Black's sharp teeth. At this moment, he aimed at the most vulnerable part of the inferior manfish, so he killed it with one blow. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Little Black was a natural hunter, a hunter more terrifying than human cultivators. If Little Black could reach level 49 or level 50, he would probably be a real ocean killer. Not to mention an inferior manfish, even a half-mermaid might be able to kill a hidden fisher-level powerhouse with a single bite. On this side, the inferior manfish was killed, and Han Fei saw that the other one didn't respond. Han Fei immediately sneered. It seemed that the inferior manfish's perception range was not large, definitely not within 5,000 meters. In this case, Han Fei didn't have to worry so much. After Little Black killed the second inferior manfish, Han Fei didn't even bother to find a sea-swallowing seashell and asked Little White to lead the way. However, leading the way this time gave Han Fei a headache. Almost every 30 to 50 kilometers, he would meet an inferior manfish. After killing more than 20 inferior manfish in a row, suddenly, a shrill roar spread hundreds of kilometers. Damn it! Han Fei was discovered. After swimming for less than 800 kilometers, he was discovered. Han Fei shouted, "Little White, full speed ahead." Third. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 7:18. This time, Han Fei didn't even bother to hide and directly began to rush. And Little White's speed, although not as fast as Little Gold's, could still match Han Fei's speed without the majestic mystic spell. Han Fei, Little Black, and Little White rushed forward side by side, leaving 3 water explosion patterns behind them. Because they were too fast, they left a trail of thousands of meters in the water, lasting for a long time. It was precisely because Han Fei didn't hide his position anymore that his position was discovered immediately. So, the first to appear were dozens of inferior manfish. Then, more and more inferior manfish appeared, and some appeared directly in front of Han Fei. "Since you force me to kill, then I'll kill you." Every time Han Fei slashed with the blood-drinking knife in his hand, a flickering knife light would fall in front of an inferior manfish with seawater that could break through the barrier. With one slash, an extremely strong invincible fighting intent appeared, and in the blink of an eye, an inferior manfish would be cut down. However, when Han Fei waved the knife for the first time, his heart skipped a beat. Did the invincible fighting intent weaken? No, it was because he had become stronger. At the beginning, Old Bai told him that the invincible fighting intent he comprehended did not belong to the category of knife intent, but was just an invincible will that he comprehended himself. As his strength grew stronger, this invincible will couldn't keep up with the pace of the improvement of his strength. At that time, because Han Fei didn't know how to comprehend knife intent, he didn't take it seriously. He thought to himself, temporarily invincible is okay. But now, when his strength broke through to the level of an intermediate hanging fisher, the invincible fighting intent didn't strengthen with the improvement of his realm. It could be seen that Han Fei's invincible fighting intent had stagnated. Although the inferior manfish still couldn't block his knife, no progress was no progress. After killing more than 20 inferior manfish, Han Fei finally admitted this fact. In his perception, Han Fei seemed to be unable to continue to break through. From all directions, including in front of him, there were endless inferior manfish pouncing at him. Han Fei suddenly stopped, turned his hand, and the blood-drinking knife disappeared into his body. With a flash between his eyebrows, he took back Little Black and Little White. Han Fei stood proudly in the dark sea, and a dazzling golden light gradually appeared on his fists. At this moment, the blood in Han Fei's body surged, and countless pictures appeared in his mind. That was the scene when he first cultivated the art of invincibility. At this moment, when he found that the invincible fighting will had weakened, it appeared again. As soon as this picture appeared, Han Fei's heart surged, as if a ferocious beast was awakening. If the invincible fighting intent doesn't improve, I'll fight until I'm invincible again. Han Fei knew that a fishing net had probably been laid out in a radius of thousands of kilometers. They were determined to catch him. Hiss! Roar! Han Fei was wearing a semi-divine battle suit. When the first inferior manfish came, a dazzling golden light blasted out, and a powerful and invincible belief gathered on his fist mark. Boom! Like a cannonball, the inferior manfish drew a white mark in the sea and directly crashed to the bottom of the sea 1,000 meters away. Boom! The bottom of the sea was shaking, smoke was rolling, and rocks were breaking. Then, from a long distance away, spears of spiritual energy broke through the air. Balls of spiritual energy were launched at Han Fei like water pressure cannons, and the harpoons were stabbed in the seawater, emitting intense cold light. Boom, boom, boom! The art of invincibility was fully activated. With Han Fei's body as the center, the dazzling golden fist marks overflowed from his body, scattering in all directions. In the dark seawater, cold light, water pressure cannons, golden fist marks, barrier-breaking watermarks, impact ripples. Battle effects emerged one after another, and ripples overlap. None of the inferior manfish, who were almost the same level as Han Fei, or even slightly stronger, could take a punch from Han Fei. The broken bodies of the inferior manfish were constantly being punched on the bottom of the sea. The roar resounded for dozens of kilometers on the bottom of the sea. The inferior manfish were roaring fiercely, rushing forward fearlessly. In the distance, the red demons and half-mermaids were rushing over quickly. When the first red demon appeared on the battlefield, within a radius of 3,000 meters from where Han Fei was, almost all the inferior manfish were lying on the ground. Their bodies were broken and they were vomiting blood. Some of their internal organs were broken, some of their heads were bleeding, and some were even directly blown into pieces. This was the third time Han Fei had drunk candle dragon blood. Every time, at least 100 or more inferior manfish would fall to the bottom of the sea forever. Not only at the bottom of the sea, but the battle fluctuations and soaring killing intent here even attracted the attention of some human masters. Perhaps those humans were still thousands of kilometers away. Some noticed the abnormal movements of the inferior manfish, and some sensed that there was a battle taking place through the weak vibration frequency of the seawater. Anyway, no matter how they discovered it, 5 or 6 people had already begun to rush in the direction where Han Fei was. After a while, some people met in the sky. "Brother, which side is fighting?" "I don't know. Were you also attracted here?" Someone appeared in the sky. "Who the F***CK is so powerful as to directly fight in the sea?" Someone stood on the bow of the ship, holding a battle bow, and shot an arrow thousands of meters into the sea. He said lightly, "Someone is fighting. Go and help." When these people arrived at the battlefield, they sensed it and were immediately shocked. An intermediate hanging fisher? On the bottom of the sea. Han Fei was fighting 4 red demons alone. Yes, 4. At this moment, Han Fei had activated the majestic mystic spell, and his body was glowing with golden light. He was tossing and turning under the continuous attacks of the 4 red demons. Golden fist marks bombarded the opponent's body like muffled thunder. Every time he struck, waves that were dozens of meters tall would surge out. Sensing that there were humans coming, Han Fei said to them via voice transmission, "Everyone, can I help you kill some inferior manfish?" Everyone was stunned. They had already sensed that no less than 300 inferior manfish had died on the seabed. Damn, was this all done by this intermediate hanging fisher? At this time, someone came from the sky. Seeing this scene, his expression changed several times. The newcomer said to him via voice transmission, "Han Fei, come back to the Scattered Stars Island with us before the half-mermaids arrive." Han Fei slapped the golden seal in his hand directly on the forehead of a red demon, knocking it to the ground. With a backhand golden fist mark, a crab rolled more than a dozen times in the water. Han Fei's eyes were cold. "Are you also here to catch me?" A few of them were already hunting at sea. At this time, a 6-star slaughterer had already jumped into the sea, attracting the attacks of dozens of inferior manfish. Someone asked the people who had just come, "This boy is called Han Fei. Why do you want to catch such a fierce heavenly talent? What did he do?" The newcomer had also fused with his spiritual beast, jumped into the water, and started fighting. While fighting, he said, Han Fei broke into the Dark Hunter Legion and went to the sea to look for someone. Someone said with a weird look, "An intermediate hanging fisher? Broke into the Dark Hunter Legion? Are you kidding me?" The man said, "He broke into the Dark Hunter Legion with the door-carrying marshal. Do you think he can break into it?" The group of people was speechless. Who on earth is this boy? He broke into the Dark Hunter Legion with the door-carrying marshal? Someone shouted, "Forget about breaking into the Dark Hunter Legion. Hey, Han Fei, why are you still fighting down there? Run away before the strong enemy arrives." Han Fei responded, "I'm practicing my combat skills. I'll be done in a moment." Han Fei was really practicing his combat skills. He hadn't mastered the art of invincibility yet. Since the cultivation of the steps into the sea, he felt that the art of invincibility had stagnated, and he couldn't make any progress. At this moment, Han Fei ignored an attack coming from behind and punched a red demon directly in front of him. There seemed to be a spiral energy around his fist. With a bang, he punched a red demon directly in front of him. A terrifying power suddenly exploded, and half of the red demon's body was directly dented. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. What kind of intermediate hanging fisher is this? Damn it, he's even stronger than a peak-level hanging fisher. Plus the 2 people who came to capture Han Fei, there were a total of 8 human powerhouses. Among these 8 people, only one had 5 stars, and the others all had 6 stars. And who else could move freely on the sea except for slaughterers? This was the title that came after completing the 100 slaughter, and it represented strength. Even the remaining 5-star powerhouses were probably trying to break through to the 6-star rank. The 8 people in the sea were almost equivalent to the combat power of 8 peak-level hanging fishers. For a time, the inferior manfish could only be slaughtered. However, in his perception, Han Fei found that a half-mermaid had already appeared. At this moment, it was sprinting towards him. Ho! Han Fei grabbed a harpoon with one hand, stretched out his hand, and the fist mark directly blew up the head of a red demon. With a wave of his hand, the golden seal was taken back, and a big seal phantom slapped on the chest of another red demon. Boom! Han Fei gritted his teeth. He glanced at the 8 people who came to help, especially at the 2 who came to capture him, and decided to continue fighting. Of the 4 red demons, only one was left. Han Fei punched dozens of times in a row, bombarding it like a madman. The energy in his body poured out and directly blasted 7 or 8 holes in the associated spirit of the red demon. Boom! When the last golden fist mark burst out, a strange power seemed to be merging with the fist mark. Swish! The fist mark blasted through the seawater, and in the next second, the red demon directly exploded. Han Fei looked down at his fist and seemed to feel a little bit better. Someone was shocked and couldn't help but say, "What a brave warrior." The 4th chapter. Just 4 chapters today. Please vote. I didn't count the number of chapters before. The estimated number of chapters this month is more than 400,000. It's not slow, it's definitely not slow. In the previous era of online literature, there were no such things as 10,000 chapters a day. Blood Red started this era. End of this chapter. Chapter 719. Han Fei grabbed another ball of candle dragon blood and stuffed it into his mouth. This was the 5th time he had drunk candle dragon blood. He finally knew why the unknown place was so dangerous. How could it not be dangerous? The outer sea was almost the back garden of the sea demons, and the inferior manfish were almost endless. When someone perceived the half-mermaids, he immediately said to Han Fei, "Boy, are you crazy? Are you practicing your combat skills here? Do you know that if you wait any longer, you won't be able to leave when there are too many half-mermaids?" Han Fei thought quickly. He miscalculated the number of sea demons, and some people had already arrived. If he continued to practice the art of invincibility, it might raise doubts. Immediately, Han Fei rushed straight to the sea like a torpedo from bottom to top. Han Fei said, "Thank you for your help. By the way, I will not return to the Scattered Stars Island." The 2 6-star powerhouses flew directly to Han Fei. "Han Fei, it's not your place to find someone." Han Fei sneered. "If you had the ability, you wouldn't have let Xia Shaochan run away. It's not that I look down on you, but no one can find her except me." One of them said, "The waist tag has the ability to locate you." Han Fei asked, "Can you locate me now?" As soon as Han Fei said this, the man was speechless. Yes, they couldn't locate Han Fei. In fact, they were not fools. Then, if he lost his waist tag, how would he be able to locate him? The other people who came to help all looked weird. F***CK, should we intervene or not? Another person who came to capture Han Fei said, "Everyone, please take action and catch Han Fei. Don't worry, this guy is not guilty of a serious crime. He just lost his mind in an emergency." Han Fei said angrily, "I'm very sober. Don't force me to fight you." Everyone was speechless. "There are 8 of us. Are we afraid of you fighting us?" BM. When they confronted each other in the air, 3 half-mermaids jumped out of the water. In the distance, 2 half-mermaids also jumped out of the water. Coming out with them were 5 or 6 red demons and hundreds of inferior manfish. Everyone's face changed. The 6 killers were not going to participate in this matter. On the one hand, they had witnessed Han Fei's slaughter. This kind of genius must have an extraordinary background. It wouldn't do him any good to offend him. Moreover, this kid had insulted the law enforcement team right in front of them. With such a fiery temper, was there a need for him to go up and beat him? What if he bore a grudge against me in the future? Immediately someone shouted, "Let's go. Don't wait for them to form a blockade. It'll be too late if we don't leave now." These people directly controlled the fishing boat to soar into the sky. The fishing boat accelerated. Seeing that the others had left, the 2 members of the law enforcement group couldn't help but curse inwardly, a bunch of fish demons. However, it was not a good time to catch Han Fei, so the 2 of them immediately controlled the fishing boat and prepared to escape first. However, when their fishing boats suddenly soared into the sky, the half-mermaids and red demons on the sea suddenly flew up. Han Fei was stunned by this scene. F***CK. They can fly too? Yes, Han Fei saw that there seemed to be a water skateboard under the feet of the half-mermaid and the red demon, which looked like a surfboard. They actually flew on this skateboard. Of course, those inferior manfish didn't have this ability. They could only run on the sea, condensing spiritual energy spears in their hands and shooting at Han Fei. The people of the law enforcement group shouted, "Han Fei, let's escape from the sea demons first. You don't know anything. How can you set foot in the outer sea now?" With that, the two of them rushed away. However, while they were rushing away, there were also half-mermaids chasing them, but Han Fei didn't care about them. 5 half-mermaids were flying on skateboards and rushing towards him. Among them, several had even used the Sea King's secret technique. Han Fei spat. "Surfing against my wind god boat?" In the next moment, the wind god boat rushed out in a red light and disappeared into the sky. Bam! Like a thunderclap, a cone-shaped cloud wrapped the wind god boat, broke through the sound barrier in the blink of an eye, and flashed away like a meteor across the sky. Those half-mermaids watched this group of people fly away in all directions and let out unwilling roars. At this moment, Han Fei really understood why hanging fishers were called hanging fishers. As long as he could fly in the sky, the sea demons could do nothing to him. This was the invincible position. Half-mermaids dominated the sea, but they couldn't fly until they became hidden fishers. Although they could condense skateboards by some means, they couldn't fly. Although the speed of the skateboard was also fast, it was much slower than human fishing boat. This was why hanging fishers were so confident to patrol in the air. However, there were also flaws. If a hanging fisher wanted to wander in the outer sea of the unknown place, he had to rely on fishing boat. Once the fishing boat was damaged, and hanging fishers couldn't fly, if they didn't have excellent concealment skills, there would only be one result: being surrounded and killed by fish tides and sea demons. In fact, Han Fei only flew thousands of kilometers away before he jumped into the water again. "Daughter, can you still feel your mommy's position?" Because the pursuit couldn't be sustained, when the trace disappeared, it was difficult for Little White to find it for a while. After a full half an hour, Little White seemed to have reconfirmed the direction. Han Fei walked out of the array, glanced around, and guessed in his heart. If Xia Xiaochan ran into the deep sea by herself, it would be almost impossible for her to break through the sea demon's back garden. Therefore, Han Fei still believed that Xia Xiaochan should be in the gate of the hexagon starfish at this moment. It was a pity that he didn't fully stimulate the fighting intent of the art of invincibility just now, which was why he was in a dilemma now. Since his fighting spirit had been exhausted, he probably wouldn't be able to activate it in a short time. So, Han Fei set up a stealth array for himself and Little White, and then slowly swam on the bottom of the sea. Han Fei didn't kill the inferior manfish. He had tried it once just now. If he was really besieged, it was almost impossible to break out of the encirclement by force. Since he couldn't be reckless, he could only use his wits. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. If only he could become a fish, then he wouldn't have to be so careful not to be discovered by the sea demons. However, Han Fei immediately burst into tears. If he became a fish, wouldn't he become a sea demon? He'd better be a human being. If he became a sea demon, he would be the enemy of all mankind. Han Fei slowly moved, and it took him a full 8 hours to completely walk out of the sea demon's encirclement. During this period, Han Fei entered Forge the Universe several times to avoid being tracked. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. "I'm still too weak. If only I could have 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid. If only I could have a few 100 million more points of spiritual energy." 2 days later. Chomp! Han Fei swallowed a spiritual fruit in 2 bites. In the past 2 days, Han Fei had almost never taken the spiritual fruit away from his hand. One was to heal his wounds, and the other was to store spiritual energy. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't directly use the spiritual fruit as spiritual energy, which was too wasteful. Han Fei occasionally fed spiritual energy to Little White. After all, unlike him, Little White first had to deal with the conflicts of spiritual energy caused by different spiritual fruit. Only after stabilizing these could the spiritual energy be completely his. In addition, in the past 2 days, Han Fei had encountered more than once powerful exotic creatures and tried to catch them twice. One time, he was discovered and ran away. The other time, he attracted an inferior manfish, so he could only run away. Now Han Fei watched a big crab with a whole body like jade running past him, but he couldn't move. Because it was with this big crab that he avoided the half-mermaid above his head. Son of AB***, it's been 2 days. Why haven't you given up yet? These sea demons are too stubborn, aren't they? Didn't I just kill one of your squads? When the half-mermaid above his head swam away, Han Fei slowly breathed a sigh of relief and asked Little White to continue to lead the way. However, after swimming for more than 300 kilometers, Little White stopped swimming. Han Fei took a closer look and found that he had run to a place full of sea-leaping grass. This place was covered with seaweed, and Han Fei perceived that 800 meters away from him, there was a green octopus hiding in the seaweed. He saw colorful sea urchins lying on the seaweed, and some stones were actually crabs in disguise. In such a place, Han Fei suddenly had an idea. He found something different. There was something wrong with the flow of spiritual energy here. The amount of spiritual energy contained in the sea rattan grass has decreased? No, a lot of spiritual energy has dissipated. Why doesn't the sea rattan grass absorb it? A defensive array? No, it's a maze. Although Han Fei wasn't as proficient in arrays now, it was much better than before. He found that someone had set up a maze here by extracting the spiritual energy of the sea rattan grass. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. Good Lord, I finally found it. Chapter 720. Han Fei didn't destroy the maze. In his eyes, the eyes of true vision finally found an extremely inconspicuous array eye according to the way the spiritual energy flowed. When Han Fei stood in the array itself didn't respond. Han Fei grinned. The hexagon starfish was indeed very good at setting up arrays. Ordinary people would think that this array was set up a long time ago and had long been abandoned if there was no abnormality after finding the array eye. But Xiaobai was here, so Han Fei knew that the hexagon starfish must be below. After half an hour, Han Fei discovered that this was a stacked array. The outer maze was just a camouflage, and the real array turned out to be the location of those sea vine grasses. When Han Fei smashed a sea vine grass, another array eye was exposed. Swish! Han Fei appeared directly in a secret realm from the sea vine grasses. To Han Fei's surprise, this secret realm was full of spiritual energy, there was even a spiritual spring gathering, and there were many purple crystals protruding from the ground, as if he had walked into a prehistoric underground cave. Master Hexagon, I'm here. Han Fei perceived and found that in this small secret realm with a radius of less than 3,000 meters, a piece of sand was shaking and a tentacle emerged from the ground. Han Fei's tightened heart was immediately relaxed. Sure enough, they were here. Fortunately, nothing happened. The hexagon starfish climbed out of the sand and shouted at Han Fei, I'm going to retire here. I'm not going to go out. Han Fei was speechless. Why are you going to retire? If this array is broken, you will be caught like a turtle in a jar. At that time, you will be dead. Where is Xia Shaochan? Tell her to come out. Is she hurt? Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish and suddenly said, Huh! You actually broke through, and you even broke through 3 levels in a row? Before Han Fei asked in detail, he saw the hexagon starfish's body stiffen, and then with a swish, it wanted to run to the entrance of the cave. Han Fei was already holding a stone in his hand. Don't you want your essence blood? However, the smile on Han Fei's face had disappeared. Why is the hexagon starfish running? The hexagon starfish, however, said pitifully, I didn't lose her, but she left me behind. It has nothing to do with starfish. Han Fei's face had completely darkened. Come here. Tell me, where is Xia Shaochan? Why aren't you two together? The hexagon starfish floated in the water resignedly. She turned into a crab and ran away. What? Han Fei was dumbfounded. What do you mean by turning into a crab and running away? The hexagon starfish nodded. She turned into a big crab and ran away. Xia Shaochan turned into a big crab? Seeing the hexagon starfish's confirmation, Han Fei frowned. Xia Shaochan must have turned herself into a crab with the metamorphosis water. Han Fei walked over and dragged the hexagon starfish to him. Tell me, what happened in the undersea chimney? What could the hexagon starfish do? It didn't know how Han Fei found it. Anyway, it was scared out of its wits and ran to this place without knowing why. The hexagon starfish said, "It's a fight. They go out to fight every day. This time, they went to grab the spirit awakening fluid, and then they fought." Han Fei was stunned. Tell me, what do you mean by fighting? Who fought who? The hexagon starfish said, Xia Shaochan first fought with fish, then with mermaids, and then with humans. Then, Xia Shaochan went crazy and fought everyone she saw. Fortunately, she didn't fight starfish. Otherwise, I would have been a dead starfish now. Han Fei's face was black. It's normal to fight with fish and mermaids. But why did she suddenly fight with others? The hexagon starfish's big eyes rolled. There was a woman who seemed to have sprinkled something on Xia Shaochan, and then she went crazy. Han Fei's heart trembled. Tell me, which woman? What did she sprinkle on Xia Shaochan? Han Fei had a bad feeling in his heart. Xia Shaochan's illness was not caused by the spirit awakening fluid, but by someone else? The first person that came to Han Fei's mind was the woman named Shui Ran. She was Xia Shaochan's captain and one of the team leaders this time. She was most likely to attack Xia Shaochan. The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes and said, "Women all look the same. I can't tell them apart." Han Fei said coldly, "I'll give you another chance to organize your words. Which woman was it?" The hexagon starfish was anxious. "I don't know her. I only know that the woman, she had a finger cut off by Xia Shaochan." What? Suddenly, around Han Fei's body, a wave of water shook outward. Yang? Han Fei suddenly remembered that when he broke into the Dark Hunter Legion a few days ago, only Gong Wenhai and Yang Ying were left in Xia Shaochan's team, except for Captain Shui Ran. At that time, Yang Ying raised her hand to show Han Fei that her little finger was cut off by Xia Shaochan. At first, Han Fei thought that Gong Wenhai slandered Xia Shaochan because he couldn't get her, but Gong Wenhai didn't like her. But now it seemed that it wasn't the case at all. Yang Ying had framed Xia Shaochan. But weren't they all from the Dark Hunter Legion? Why did she frame Xia Shaochan? Han Fei immediately asked, "Then do you know why that woman attacked you?" The starfish immediately rolled its eyes. I don't know. Han Fei had been staring at the hexagon starfish. He had been with the hexagon starfish for a long time. Once the starfish tried to think, its eyes would roll. At this moment, its big eyes were spinning faster than a top. Immediately, Han Fei pinched its essence blood. Master Hexagon, a lying starfish is not a good starfish. The hexagon starfish was almost crying. Well, maybe Xia Shaochan robbed some spirit awakening fluid and I helped her put it away. Han Fei frowned. It was extremely unscientific that the hexagon starfish had leveled up by 3 levels in a row. As mysterious creatures, Little Black and Little White had drunk a lot of spirit awakening fluid, but they hadn't reached level 40 yet. However, the hexagon starfish suddenly jumped from level 43 to level 46. This speed was even faster than a rocket. Whether it was Little Gold, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp, or Little Fatty, after level 38, hundreds of kilograms of spirit awakening fluid couldn't help them improve. The hexagon starfish was level 43 before. How much spirit awakening fluid did this guy swallow to level 46? Han Fei looked awkward. You mean that woman was jealous that Xia Shaochan robbed a lot of spirit awakening fluid, so she attacked her? The hexagon starfish shrugged. I don't know. Anyway, she just did it. A cold smile appeared on the corner of Han Fei's mouth. He just didn't like Gong Wenhai and thought that, if he met him at sea in the future, he would kill that guy. But now, Yang Ying was also on his death list, and she ranked first. However, Han Fei had no time to deal with Yang Ying now. That woman probably had only two choices. One was to pray that he couldn't find Xia Shaochan or that she died outside, and the other was to slip away while he was not on the Scattered Stars Island. At this moment, Han Fei's top priority was to continue looking for Xia Shaochan. Since the hexagon starfish said that Xia Shaochan turned into a crab and ran away, it meant that her condition should be stable. Han Fei asked, "How did you get here? Did Xia Shaochan turn into a crab and bring you here? When did Xia Shaochan stop going crazy?" This time, the hexagon starfish answered very smoothly. It said, "She just had an attack for a while. After fighting a lot, she passed out. After she passed out, I put her into a gate. Then, she was chased by a group of sea demons for a long time, and then I came here." Han Fei was surprised. "You brought her here? Then when did she turn into a crab and run away?" The hexagon starfish said, "After she woke up, she turned into a crab. In the form of a crab, she stayed here for a day and said that she wanted to go out and have a look." Starfish certainly didn't want to go out. Then she never came back. "No, wait a minute. You said that after Xia Shaochan woke up, she turned into a crab? It's so safe here. Why did she turn into a crab?" The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes. "I don't know." Han Fei really wanted to slap the hexagon starfish. "What the hell do you know? Drink the spirit awakening fluid. You don't know anything else." Han Fei immediately stared at the hexagon starfish. "Hand over the spirit awakening fluid." The hexagon starfish's eyes stiffened, and it immediately rolled its eyes. "Starfish has already drunk it. There's nothing left." Han Fei sneered. "Then open the door and let me in and have a look." Of course, the hexagon starfish refused. However, Han Fei grabbed it with one hand. "Do you want to become a pentagon starfish?" "Hey, the spirit awakening fluid was snatched by Xia Shaochan. No matter how much I give you, it's just for temporary safekeeping. But you secretly drank tens of thousands of caddies, and now you want to keep it all to yourself?" "Starfish didn't drink tens of thousands of caddies." Han Fei asked, "If it's not tens of thousands of caddies, can you break through 3 levels in a row?" The hexagon starfish's big eyes kept rolling. "Starfish only drank more than 10,000 caddies." Damn it. Han Fei really wanted to slap this guy to death. Damn it, only drank more than 10,000 caddies? Don't you think it's enough? Han Fei said coldly, "I'll count to 3. Are you going to take it or not?" Chapter 721. The hexagon starfish compromised. It knew that the spirit awakening fluid couldn't be stored anymore, but it didn't expect Han Fei to come so soon. Otherwise, if it was given a few more days, it might be able to break through to level 47. At that time, it would definitely become a powerful starfish. The hexagon starfish took out 2,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei was furious. "Are you kidding me? Give it all to me." The hexagon starfish said aggrievedly, "There are only 2,000 caddies left." Han Fei sneered. "Dishonest starfish, do you think you have too many claws? You drank more than 10,000 caddies and I didn't care about it. Now you tell me that you only have 2,000 caddies left?" Under Han Fei's repeated coercion, Han Fei even went to the hexagon starfish sect and finally confirmed that there was no more left. In total, he dug out 2,900 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei was speechless. If he had come one day later, the spirit awakening fluid would have been gone. This starfish was really good at drinking. However, this also indirectly confirmed Han Fei's guess that an undersea chimney must contain a lot of spirit awakening fluid. Xia Shaochan alone grabbed more than 20,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. How terrifying was this? More than 20,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid. More than 100 million points of credit were almost drunk by the hexagon starfish. Han Fei asked, "When did Xia Shaochan leave?" The hexagon starfish nodded. "Yesterday." "How much spirit awakening fluid did she take with her?" The hexagon starfish rolled his eyes. "She didn't take a caddy with her. She said she left it all to me. So, this spirit awakening fluid belongs to the starfish." Han Fei sneered. "I'll confiscate the rest." The hexagon starfish. With a flash between Han Fei's eyebrows, Little Black and Little White appeared. Without saying a word, Han Fei directly threw 400 caddies of spirit awakening fluid at them. As a result, the luster on Little White and Little Black became stronger, but they still failed to break through. So Han Fei threw another 500 caddies of spirit awakening fluid to them. This time, when Little White swallowed 300 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, he broke through and finally reached level 39. Han Fei's eyes lit up. Under the eager gaze of the hexagon starfish, the remaining 2,200 caddies of spirit awakening fluid were all fed to Little White. This made Little White look even more holy and pure. However, he still couldn't break through to the next level, as if he was stuck at a bottleneck. The hexagon starfish said, This should be a major bottleneck. I don't think the spirit awakening fluid is enough." Puh. Han Fei slapped the hexagon starfish to the ground. "Don't be greedy. Will you die if you keep more?" Han Fei felt it was a pity. He wondered how much spirit awakening fluid was needed for a contractual spiritual beast to make a breakthrough. However, as mysterious creatures, Little Black and Little White were extremely powerful, so they might need more spirit awakening fluid. Seeing that he couldn't make a breakthrough, he gave up. After all, it was only his third day at sea. No matter how rich the resources in the ocean were, it was impossible to become fat in a day or two. Han Fei believed that even if Little Black and Little White hadn't made a breakthrough yet, they wouldn't be far from it. He would find a way to get more spirit awakening fluid for these two little guys to make breakthroughs first. As for Little Fatty and the others, they could just wait. Unless he could get another 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid, he probably wouldn't be able to make it. Han Fei grabbed the hexagon starfish and pressed it on his shoulder. "Let's go find Xia Shaochan." The hexagon starfish was about to cry. "I don't want to go. It's too dangerous outside. I think I can stay here." Han Fei said fiercely, "T. If you stay here, you will be dug out by others sooner or later." At this moment, Han Fei was full of doubts. Xia Shaochan didn't even take a kilogram of spirit awakening fluid with her and turned into a crab. Where did she go? Since she had escaped, if Xia Shaochan wanted to return to the Scattered Stars Island, she could easily do so. After all, Xia Shaochan also had a wind god boat. Besides, if Xia Shaochan wanted to go back, she couldn't go without the hexagon starfish. And why did Xia Shaochan leave the spirit awakening fluid to the hexagon starfish? She knew that Little White had the ability to track, so Han Fei would definitely chase after her if he knew that she didn't return to the Scattered Stars Island. Therefore, Xia Shaochan probably wanted to leave this batch of spirit awakening fluid to him, right? Immediately, Han Fei suddenly whipped the hexagon starfish. "When Xia Shaochan left, did she ask you to give this batch of spirit awakening fluid to me?" The hexagon starfish clenched his claws and rolled his big eyes. "No, she said it was for me." Seeing the hexagon starfish's reaction, Han Fei had already understood. He sneered. "Okay, dishonest starfish, the labor contract will be renewed for 10 years. Just wait to sell yourself." The hexagon starfish felt wronged. "She really left it to me." Han Fei didn't listen to its explanation and just said lightly, "If you can still find her, you can drink this bit of spirit awakening fluid and I won't ask you for more." If you can't find her, I tell you, you are doomed. Han Fei knew that something must have happened to Xia Xiaochan. He didn't know what exactly happened, but something must have happened. Because of this, she chose not to return to the Scattered Stars Island. However, although Xia Xiaochan was not weak, the outer domain of the Scattered Stars Island was full of dangers. Only Han Fei himself knew how hard it had been during the 3 days he had been out. It was many times more dangerous than the level 3 fishery. Little White was looking for a direction and swimming slowly. Han Fei was not in a hurry. Now that Xia Xiaochan was cured, no one could catch her. With the all things water in her body, Xia Xiaochan could become anything she wanted. Since Xia Xiaochan's safety was not a big problem, Han Fei was not so anxious. He planned to find her while honing himself. However, Han Fei didn't know that on the Scattered Stars Island, many people had already exploded. The first to explode was Zhang Xuanyu. He flew up and kicked Lurenquang. "You damn fatty, why didn't you call me? Are you King my brother? Why did you just let Han Fei go to the outer sea alone? I'm so pissed off." Lurenquang felt wronged. Even if we go, the outer sea is indeed too big a target. Luo Xiaobai had just returned and was the calmest one at this moment. "Don't worry, it shouldn't be a big problem. At least Senior Brother Dashui said that Han Fei killed a lot of sea demons, which is all credit. The charges of breaking into the Dark Hunter Legion and leaving the island should be offset." Zhang Xuanyu said angrily, "The question is Xia Xiaochan all right?" Everyone's heart sank. They really didn't know. In the Dark Hunter Legion, according to Gong Wenhai and Yang Ying's hints, it seemed that Xia Xiaochan killed someone and fled. However, Luo Xiaobai and the others certainly didn't believe it. Luo Xiaobai said, "Keep an eye on Gong Wenhai, Yang Ying, and Shui Ran. If one of them maliciously spreads this rumor, he will be the most suspicious." The Twisted Jungle. Jiang Qin frowned. "Do you want me to look for them?" Old Jiang shook his head. "No need. The life tablets of the 5 of them are now with me, and they are all fine. As for why they don't come back, what if they don't want to come back?" Jiang Qin said, "But it's too dangerous. Their current strength is not enough to dominate the outer sea of the Scattered Stars Island." Old Jiang sneered. "Don't worry, they are all cunning. If something happens, they won't just wait to die. Besides, the outer sea is so big. Even if you go looking for them in person, it won't be easy for you to find them." Jiang Qin rolled her eyes. "Can't you find them yourself?" Old Jiang shook his head again. "You can't find them, but I can? Unless they are killed by the dying strike. At that time, I will know where they are. Besides, if I go out, Shueishenqi won't just sit by and do nothing." Scattered Stars Prison. Zhang Ting's face was dark and he looked at the jailers. "Still no news about that kid?" A jailer smiled bitterly. "Boss, that kind of heavenly talent can't be judged by common sense. A guy who can hone his combat skills amidst hundreds and thousands of sea demons is simply a lunatic." Zhang Ting spat. F***CK, I knew that everyone in the Thug Academy is a troublemaker. Now that the dragon has returned to the sea, there's no way to find him. Withdraw all the people. Withdraw. The jailers looked at each other. "Are we not going to chase him?" Zhang Ting said hatefully, "If we can't find him, how can we chase him? Does the Scattered Stars prison look so free?" Central city of the Scattered Stars Island. Inside a certain palace, a gentle-looking young man was looking at a huge sea map. On this sea map, the Scattered Stars Island was just a palm-sized place. On the map, there were no less than 1,000 places marked in a mess. Someone respectfully knelt on one knee. "Commander, Xia Xiaochan and Han Fei are gone." This person was the famous Supreme Commander of the Scattered Stars Island, Shueishenqi. However, Shueishenqi's face didn't change at all, and his eyes were still staring at the sea map. After a long time, he said lightly, "Okay. For old Zhang's sake, I'll let this matter go. By the way, where is Tango?" "Commander, Tangu wants to go to sea, but he has been intercepted. Shueishenqi nodded. Let him go. Just keep an eye on him and don't let him leave the island. After a long time, Shueishenqi murmured, Han Fei Jiang Daqian, the Thug Academy. Han Guanshu, what on earth are you planning? Everyone is in the trap, but what is the history of Xia Shaochan and Tango? You have been hiding for more than 30 years. What's your purpose? The third chapter. Asking for votes. Adding chapters. Later. Excluding dinner time. Update at 7 or 8 o'clock. End of this chapter. Chapter 722. 3 days later. Han Fei had gone 30,000 kilometers deep into the open sea, and the creatures he encountered were getting stronger and stronger. First of all, there were more and more exotic creatures. This made Han Fei exclaim. In the past, encountering an exotic creature in the level 3 fishery was like winning the lottery. But now? Nowadays, exotic creatures were running everywhere. Almost every 1,000 miles, and sometimes even every few hundred miles, there would be one. Sometimes he could even encounter them in groups. However, Han Fei hadn't found a creature with a higher quality than exotic creatures so far. It seemed that the exotic creatures were already the best here. After a few days, the number of inferior manfish and other sea demons that were searching for Han Fei had decreased a lot. Today, Han Fei swam for a long time but didn't find a single inferior manfish. Did the inferior manfish go to a gathering? Or did they go to worship the sea god? This doesn't make sense. The hexagon starfish said, the nearby creatures have become stronger. Let's go back to the island. Han Fei scoffed. Don't you find that little white is swimming slower and slower now? She must have found Xia Xiaochan's location. Let's find her first. About half an hour later, Han Fei's eyes suddenly lit up. He sensed a canyon. It was very deep, and Little White was heading in that direction. However, when Han Fei came to this canyon, his face changed. The spiritual energy here was chaotic, and there was blood everywhere. It should have just been a battle. Han Fei had no time to think about it and rushed into the canyon. The seawater here was quite turbid, which should be the dust and sand on the bottom of the sea, rolled up in the battle. Besides, above the canyon, there were several cliffs, and sand flowed into the canyon like waterfalls, which could be called a sand waterfall. Before he reached the bottom of the canyon, Han Fei's perception had swept all the areas within 40 kilometers. He found that the bottom of the canyon was like a desert. There were more than 20 inferior manfish and red demons scattered, and 3 half-mermaids died on the spot. This was just above the sand sea. Dozens of meters below the sand sea, Han Fei also found several red demons' corpses. Going deeper, Han Fei couldn't perceive them easily. Although his perception range was large, it was extremely difficult to sense something that needed to penetrate matter. Penetrating the sandy ground for dozens of meters was still manageable. If there was a huge space underground that wasn't sealed, it would be easy. However, if there was sand and rocks all the way down, it would be extremely difficult. For example, at this moment, Han Fei's perception penetrated no more than 20 meters into the sea of sand, and he felt that the penetration was exponentially more difficult. Han Fei didn't think that Xia Shaochan would hide so deeply, so he rushed all the way down. When Han Fei passed by a red demon, he saw a harpoon lying not far away and couldn't help but wonder. He patted it casually and a sea-swallowing seashell was slapped out. Why didn't you put it away? Is there nothing in it? With a thought, Han Fei scanned the sea-swallowing seashell, only to find that there were still a few kilograms of spirit-awakening fluid and more than 30 ultra-quality materials in it. They were quite valuable. Han Fei glanced at Little White. Daughter, are you sure Xia Shaochan is here? Han Fei frowned. This doesn't make sense. Xia Shaochan was the same as him. They were both greedy people. It didn't make sense that after killing so many red demons and half-mermaids, she didn't even want their sea-swallowing seashells. the inferior manfish Han Fei just took out 10 sea-swallowing seashells from the red demons and half-mermaid. Among them, the half-mermaids also contributed 510 kilograms of spirit-awakening fluid, more than 5,000 kilograms of spiritual spring, and more than 30 mid-quality and low-quality spiritual stones. This time, it had been several days since the battle for the undersea chimney. Besides, it was too far away from the undersea chimney, so it was understandable that there was little spirit-awakening fluid. However, Han Fei wasn't happy at all. Xia Shaochan killed the sea demons without taking their sea-swallowing seashells. There were only two possibilities. First, Xia Shaochan had no time or opportunity to take these sea-swallowing seashells at that time. That meant that there were still sea demons chasing her. If it was the first possibility, Han Fei was confident that Xia Shaochan could avoid it. But if it was the second possibility, Han Fei thought for a while. What if these sea demons and sea-swallowing seashells were all left by Xia Shaochan? Han Fei knew that Xia Shaochan didn't want the spirit-awakening fluid. That was because if she used the spirit-awakening fluid, Xia Shaochan wouldn't be able to suppress her realm and would easily get sick. However, if these sea demons were really left by Xia Shaochan, then Xia Shaochan must have known that he was chasing her. Besides, she also knew that he was nearby. Otherwise, she wouldn't have grasped the timing so well and let him finish the job. It had been less than half an hour since these sea demons died. If he chased them now, he should be able to catch up with them. Han Fei immediately touched Little White's head. Let's keep chasing. Han Fei didn't need to think about it. If so many sea demons died at once, they would definitely be alarmed. If it was just the inferior manfish and red demons, it would be fine, but there were even half-mermaids here. It was hard to say whether they had life tablets or not. After all, Han Fei didn't know the living environment of sea demons. Did they have a rear base? Did they also have a sea demon city? Han Fei didn't know. If they did, the half-mermaids should be considered heavenly talents and should have life tablets. Otherwise, when he killed more than a dozen sea demons a few days ago, he wouldn't have been caught. This time, Han Fei didn't slow down but rushed all the way, sprinting with Little White again. However, after rushing for more than 500 kilometers, they encountered 2 half-mermaids and 3 red demons. As for the inferior manfish, they didn't see any of them. F***ck. Han Fei cursed secretly. I just want to find them in peace. Han Fei said to them via voice transmission, don't get in the way. I'm not interested in fighting you. However, the half-mermaids didn't care about this. They roared, kill. Han Fei's eyes turned cold and he activated the majestic mystic spell. At this time, he was not interested in honing the art of invincibility, so he killed them directly so that he could continue to chase Xia Shaochan. Little Fatty and Little Gold attached to him, and he slashed at a red demon with the draw technique. Although the red demon's reaction was extremely fast, its battle suit and harpoon were broken. It was not even qualified to block Han Fei's blow. After all, Han Fei was no longer what he used to be. The strength of an intermediate peak-level hanging fisher was not much different from that of an advanced or even peak-level hanging fisher. Besides, the red demon was not a peak-level red demon, so it was natural that it was cut in half. Holding the golden seal, Han Fei collided head-on with a half-mermaid. At the moment of the collision, a weird smile appeared on his face. Within a radius of 300 meters, the infinity water turned into knives and swept over. The next moment, the 10,000 knives in one burst out. Infinity water plus the 10,000 knives in one, there were really knives everywhere. He didn't give these sea demons a chance to escape at all. White flames ignited on the half-mermaids' bodies. Among them, a half-mermaid discovered the horror of Han Fei and tried to escape. In the end, a small golden seal was thrown at him. The terrifying power directly bombarded him to the seabed. Smoke and dust filled the air in an instant, and with the explosion of Han Fei's golden fist mark, these 2 half-mermaids and 3 red demons were all killed in less than 10 minutes. Putting away their harpoons and sea-swallowing seashells, Han Fei continued to rush forward. However, after chasing for less than 100 kilometers, Little White suddenly stopped and then looked at Han Fei in confusion. Han Fei asked, "What's the matter, daughter? Is this the place?" Han Fei looked around. This was an ordinary seabed, full of seabed sand, and there were not many plants around. Except for some reefs on the seabed, there was nothing else. But the next moment, Little White responded, "Xia Xiaochan's aura disappeared." Disappeared? Han Fei couldn't believe it. What method did Xia Xiaochan use? Even Xiao Bai couldn't catch up to her? However, Han Fei couldn't stop. There had been 2 battles here, and if there were no accidents, other sea demons would come after a while. Han Fei immediately said to the hexagon starfish, "Open the door. I'll go in." The hexagon starfish was surprised. "Huh? Starfish, don't run by yourself." Han Fei scolded, "Find a place, set up an array, and hide." When Han Fei came out again, the inferior manfish appeared in his perception again. Yes, the sea demons were alert again. This made it 10 times more difficult for him to find Xia Xiaochan. As a result, the search process was back to square one again. One day later, Little White found the direction where Xia Xiaochan was again. Han Fei searched for her for more than half a month. During this period, Han Fei finally confirmed one thing: Xia Xiaochan was F*King playing hide-and-seek with him. Every time he was about to find her, Han Fei could always find that there had been a battle. A large number of half-mermaids and red demons were killed or wounded, and their sea-swallowing seashells and weapons were left to him. This kind of thing happened almost every 3 days. Why is this happening? Han Fei was confused. He had no idea what Xia Xiaochan's purpose was. The same thing happened. The sea demons were also confused. Every few days, a batch of sea demons would die, and every few days, another batch would die, and no one would be able to find them. In a certain underwater mountain range, a half-mermaid said coldly, "This must be the track of human beings. They want to disturb our rear camp. This time, 12 sea demons will lead the team. Dig her out for me." Okay, that's all for today. Take a break. I'll continue to write tomorrow's chapter. Since you can't go out during the new year, take a rest. It seems that many schools have delayed classes for 10 days. Well, read more and sleep more. End of this chapter. Chapter 723. In the past half a month, Han Fei had collected a lot of good things. He used to eat spiritual fruits every day, but now he didn't even need to eat spiritual fruit. Just picking up garbage behind Xia Xiaochan, he had picked up a huge amount of spiritual spring and a small number of spiritual stones. Han Fei roughly calculated, plus the spiritual energy he had stored before and the ones he picked up recently, he had 70 million points of spiritual energy. Among them, the spiritual spring alone accounted for 28 million points of spiritual energy, nearly 30,000 caddies. By eating spiritual fruits, he had 24 million points of spiritual energy. And with his own spiritual stones and the spiritual stones he picked up, he had 20 million points of spiritual energy in total. In this way, he was not far from accumulating 100 million points of spiritual energy. However, in addition to the spiritual spring, Han Fei picked up very little spirit awakening fluid. In the past half a month, he had picked up less than 1,500 caddies in total after 7 or 8 times. The more he picked up, the less he got. In the last 2 times, he didn't even see 1 caddy. Han Fei had every reason to believe that those sea demons had become smart. Now when he went out, he either drank up the precious spirit awakening fluid or didn't take it with him. Han Fei thought, it's unlikely that they didn't take it with them. Who would leave such a precious thing at home? Besides, whether the sea demons had a home or not was still a problem. Therefore, there was an 80% chance that they drank it themselves. Han Fei stuffed a spiritual fruit into his mouth. He had to continue to eat spiritual fruit. Now he didn't even have 100 million points of spiritual energy directly available. If he needed to deduce a cultivation technique, it wouldn't even be enough. In fact, this time Han Fei came out with the idea of deducing a cultivation technique before going back. Suddenly, Han Fei felt dozens of surging waves shuttling from the front at an incredible speed. Han Fei subconsciously withdrew his perception and immediately cast a concealment array and a breath-concealing array on himself. Han Fei shouted, "Master Hexagon, hurry up, set up an array and hide us. There's no time to get into the door." The hexagon starfish shuddered and covered Han Fei with a concealment array. Han Fei threw out a series of concealment arrays, illusion water arrays, and a series of arrays that could quickly hide him. The hexagon starfish asked, "What's wrong?" Han Fei said, "Don't transmit your voice and don't move." A moment later, Han Fei sensed that the sea demons above his head were launching serial missiles. No, they were much faster than missiles. It was like the tail feathers of an airplane as it flew across the sky. There were hundreds of them. Han Fei was stunned. What's going on? Humans are at war with the sea demons? Han Fei didn't dare to release his perception. If he was noticed, it was almost impossible for him to escape unless he entered Forge the Universe. However, while Han Fei was watching this scene, a half-mermaid above suddenly stopped. A perception came over, and he quickly lowered his head, ready to enter Forge the Universe at any time. If worse came to worst, he could take Mr. Hexagon's starfish with him. Given the current situation, there was no way they could win. Those half-mermaids seemed to be extremely strong, definitely more than level 50. A half-mermaid asked, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Feeling the perception sweeping down, he could only hope that the illusion array of the hexagon starfish would work and not be discovered by these sea monsters. Otherwise, if he hid in Forge the Universe, he didn't know when he could come out. At this moment, at most 700 or 800 meters away from Han Fei, a sandstone shook. Immediately, a spear of spiritual energy shot down, and Han Fei saw a crab was directly pierced and exploded. Above, the half-mermaid who stopped said, "It's nothing. Maybe I was too suspicious." When the sea monsters rushed out again, Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish, and then shook his head gently. The hexagon starfish nodded, indicating that it understood. Han Fei stood where he was for almost half an hour, and suddenly a half-mermaid came down from the sea. His perception quickly scanned this area, and after waiting for a few minutes, he really ran away. After another while, Han Fei felt that there should be no third search, so he said to the hexagon starfish via voice transmission, "Let's slow down and not rush around. I feel that we seem to have found the sea monster's nest." The hexagon starfish asked, "Why did Xia Shaochan run to the sea monster's nest? Why don't we go back first? She will definitely go back by herself." Han Fei said, "Shut up. Now we are invisible. We may be hundreds of thousands of kilometers deep in the sea, and we can't even tell north from south. Do you think it's easy to go back? Keep looking." 3 hours later, the way Little White led became more and more strange. Han Fei saw a mountain range in the distance, and occasionally, some inferior manfish passed over his head. The number of marine plants in the vicinity began to increase, but the number of living creatures decreased, and the shoals of fish were even rarer. Han Fei immediately said, "Master Hexagon, something is wrong. I feel that we may have really come to the sea monster's base camp." The marine creatures didn't dare to approach, and the sea monsters frequently appeared here. Just now, the hundreds of half-mermaids at once must have slipped out from here. Master Hexagon's eyes kept rolling. "Then what should we do? Let's run. We can't beat the sea monster's base camp." Han Fei snorted. "Even if we can't beat them, we have to go there. No, we have to dig through the ground." Han Fei spread out his perception. Although there were inferior manfish within 40 kilometers, they couldn't detect him. Han Fei kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. "Dig a hole, the deeper the better. Don't hammer, just dig." Digging a hole on the bottom of the sea was actually relatively simple. Generally, the soil on the bottom of the sea was relatively loose, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp could easily dig dozens of meters deep. Han Fei followed it to collect the soil, then sealed the hole, and asked the hexagon starfish to set up one array after another in the hole. The hexagon starfish asked, "Can it work?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes, Little White, show the way." Little White was on the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's head at this moment. Wherever Little White went, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp would dig. Although it was a little slow, Han Fei felt that he would rather be slow than take risk. But he didn't understand why Xia Shaochan went to the sea monster's base camp. She must not have been caught by the sea monsters. But Han Fei didn't think so. Xia Shaochan had been playing hide-and-seek with him for so long and asked him to clean up the battlefield. There was no reason that she would be caught. If she wasn't caught, she must have a reason to go to the sea monster's base camp. Digging more than 500 meters underground, it became more and more difficult. Although he hadn't dug to the mantle layer yet, there were already thick rocks. Han Fei took a look. At this depth, if he dug into the belly of the mountain, he shouldn't be found. He dug for a full 6 hours. Suddenly, Little Black, who had been following Han Fei, jumped out. In the muddy soil, he picked up a spiritual stone. Han Fei was speechless. "Wait, where did you pick it up?" This was a low-quality spiritual stone, containing 11,022 points of spiritual energy. But although it was a low-quality spiritual stone, it was still a spiritual stone. Where did Little White lead the nine-tailed mantis shrimp to? Han Fei said happily, "Excuse me, where did you dig?" Han Fei went up and took it, turned it over, and dug out another spiritual stone, which made Han Fei's eyelids twitch. "Wow! Did you dig a spiritual stone mine?" He scanned with his perception and found that his perception could only go dozens of meters ahead. "Are you kidding me? My perception range of 40 kilometers can only go dozens of meters?" However, in these dozens of meters, Han Fei perceived more than a dozen low-quality spiritual stones. At that time, Han Fei was quite calm. If he picked up every single piece of the mountain, would he collapse the mountain? Han Fei had done this before. When he was in the level 1 fishery, Han Fei had collapsed the mine. If he collapsed the base of the sea demons, would he have a chance to run out alive? "No, I can't just leave them here." Han Fei couldn't refuse the spiritual stones when they were right in front of him. Just how much did he regard money as dirt? However, Han Fei didn't directly stuff them into Forge the Universe. Instead, he took out a big box from Forge the Universe. He picked up every piece he saw and asked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp to pull the box forward. Han Fei murmured, "As long as the spiritual energy doesn't disperse, it shouldn't collapse, right?" As a result, Han Fei dug deeper and deeper. When the nine-tailed mantis shrimp dug out layers of rocks, Han Fei found that he couldn't perceive anything above. He found that his perception was completely blocked and he was trapped in the belly of the mountain. Boom! At this moment, as soon as Han Fei picked up a high-quality spiritual stone, the road he had dug before collapsed. Han Fei. The hexagon starfish. The hexagon starfish asked, "Did you trap us in the stone pile?" Han Fei lowered his head and looked at the big box in his arms. "I don't think I dug much. Less than 100 yuan. There isn't even a piece of top-grade spirit stone. How did it collapse?" The hexagon starfish asked. "The problem now is, how do we get out?" Han Fei scratched his head. "I can't perceive anything above. Do you think they can perceive us?" Chapter 724. Han Fei was trapped in a space that was less than 10 square meters. There was no telling if it was because he didn't find anything earlier, but this was the only space left. The hexagon starfish asked, "Are we still digging?" Glancing at the box that wasn't full yet, Han Fei blinked and said, "Yes, keep digging." Han Fei was lost for words. Up until now, he had dug out the most low-grade spirit stones, 13 middle-grade spirit stones and 6 high-grade spirit stones. Just like that, the mountain collapsed? Han Fei was rather speechless about the mountain. It's not even as good as my mine. I can even find some ultra-quality spiritual stones in my mine. Even if the mountain is going to collapse, you should at least let me dig some ultra-quality spiritual stones, right? Outside. At the center of the mountain, boom! A half-mermaid rose quickly. What's that sound? A half-mermaid rushed in. My lord, a small part of the strange stone mountain at the corner of the sea demon mountain collapsed. A small part collapsed? Why did it collapse? The half-mermaid shook its head. I don't know yet. Maybe the pulse of the earth trembled. I've just examined it. It's only 5 meters deep, and the spiritual energy around is not chaotic. It should be a regular collapse. Let's go. Let's take a look. Let's hope that human beings are up to no good. A half-mermaid said, I don't think human beings are up to no good. Even if they're going to attack, they should have attacked our main peak. Why would they attack a deserted stone mountain? A moment later, a bunch of half-mermaids and red demons reached the peak of the strange stone mountain. They were lost for words when they saw that the top of the mountain had collapsed. The half-mermaid scanned for a long time and said, there shouldn't be a problem. I can still perceive 1 or 2 low-quality spiritual stones. Right, there's a demonic chi barrier between the strange stone mountain and our main peak, right? A half-mermaid said, yes. Below the strange stone mountain are all large pieces of black copper. Although there are some spiritual stones, it's too difficult to excavate them. There's a mountain far from our main peak that's covered by the demonic chi of the remains of the big demons below the sea demon mountain. We can't resist the violent demonic chi even if we go there ourselves. The half-mermaid leader nodded. Okay, let's go back. He sent out inferior sea demons to cover an area of 30,000 kilometers. It's said that Shueishenqi has come out of seclusion. Don't tell me he's up to something again. Yes, my lord. Han Fei had no idea what happened up there. Han Fei didn't even know that he had somehow dug into the most difficult corner of the sea demon mountain. At this moment, Han Fei kicked the 9-tailed mantis shrimp's head. I told you to dig a hole. Look at what you've dug. It was black. Was this iron? Don't you dare dig a metal mine for me. We're already in the immortal cultivation era. Why do we need copper and iron ores? Not even a dime. Boom! The 9-tailed mantis shrimp smashed the huge black stones one after another with his hammer aggrievedly, and then Han Fei kicked it again. I told you to slow down. Where are you? What if he hears this? In fact, at this moment, the half-mermaids who stayed here to observe also looked at each other in bewilderment. A half-mermaid asked, has the earth vein been unstable recently? On the other side, a half-mermaid said, the earth vein in the sea has never been stable. How great would it be if an undersea chimney popped up in the sea demon mountain? You're overthinking it. Even if an undersea chimney popped up, it wouldn't come from a black copper mine. I estimate that the earth vein is quaking. It's better if this mountain of strange stones collapses. We can still pick up the spiritual stones inside. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp's excavation wasn't easy. Han Fei felt that Little White might have led him to the wrong place, whose mountain was full of mines. Han Fei found that the black stuff was definitely metal. He didn't know what kind of metal it was. However, if the 9-tailed mantis shrimp weren't good at digging holes, regular creatures would have been trapped here. Boom! Crack! All of a sudden, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp broke a large piece of black copper. Then, Han Fei's eyes glittered, as if he had found a treasure. When Han Fei removed the gravel, he was dumbfounded. It was a huge tortoise shell, a black tortoise shell. No one knew how old it was, but it looked like it had already turned into a fossil. Han Fei took out the blood-drinking knife and slashed at the turtle shell. Crack! He cut off a piece of the turtle shell. The 9-tailed mantis shrimp's big eyes widened. Han Fei glanced at him. Are you an archaeologist? Go, go, go. Keep digging. It took him 2 days to dig. Han Fei found thousands of turtle fossils. He was rather upset. He had taken out a box to store spiritual stones, only to find that they were all fossils. What was the meaning of this? Could fossils be used as spiritual energy? Also, the turtle fossils were very hard. Sometimes, even the nine-tailed mantis shrimp had to beat them several times to break a piece. Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes glittered, as he saw a red shadow among the rubble. Han Fei exclaimed, "An ultra-quality spiritual stone?" Information popped up in his eyes. Name ultra-quality demonic stone introduction, condensed from the essence of spiritual liquid and demonic qi. It contains a huge amount of spiritual energy and demonic qi. But because the demonic qi is violent and tends to conflict with ordinary demonic qi, it is extremely difficult to absorb. Contains spiritual energy greater than 520,666 points. Effect, inedible absorbable. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What the F***ck is this? Where is my ultra-quality spiritual stone? What the hell is an ultra-quality demonic stone? Han Fei couldn't help but look at the hexagon starfish. Can you use this thing? The hexagon starfish was also staring at the stone in a daze. After a long while, he said, "Why don't you try absorbing it? There seems to be demonic qi here." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "How long will it take you to absorb it? How many days? More than 10 days? Forget it, I'd rather throw it away than give it to you." The hexagon starfish. Han Fei said, "If you can absorb it in an hour, I'll give this stone to you. Look, the magnificent spiritual energy. I really don't want to give it away." The hexagon starfish really wanted to roll its eyes at Han Fei. "If you don't want to give it away, why don't you absorb it yourself?" Han Fei saw the words extremely difficult to absorb, and the demonic qi was conflicting. This thing could suck him to death if he was not careful. Of course, he couldn't absorb it casually. The hexagon starfish said, "Starfish, you can try absorbing it." Han Fei didn't panic. Even if this was an ultra-quality spiritual stone, it only had 520,000 points of spiritual energy. He could make it up by eating a few spiritual fruit. It wouldn't be a pity to throw it away. The hexagon starfish curled its tentacles, and after a while, a magnificent spiritual energy, mixed with a kind of demonic qi that Han Fei was very familiar with, began to escape back and forth from the hexagon starfish. After more than 4 hours, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp dug out a few more demonic stones, but there were no ultra-quality ones. At this time, the weird scene gradually dissipated, and the hexagon starfish slowly opened its big eyes. Han Fei quickly asked, "How is it?" The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. "It doesn't seem particularly difficult to absorb, but the demonic qi is not easy to refine and can't be absorbed quickly." Han Fei was stunned. "You can absorb demonic qi?" The hexagon starfish said, "Of course, all marine creatures can absorb it. By rights, we are all demons. Why can't we absorb demonic qi?" Han Fei said, "You are a demon, but I am not." The hexagon starfish said, "I mean, all marine creatures are demons, and so is this big shrimp." The hexagon starfish pointed at the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp glanced at it. Han Fei frowned. "Nonsense, then why didn't I feel any demonic qi from the nine-tailed mantis shrimp?" The hexagon starfish responded, "Because we don't use demonic qi to cultivate. We only regard demonic qi as a kind of spiritual energy to nourish our bodies. However, those sea demons are different. They regard spiritual energy as demonic qi, and they seem to be able to transform each other, so there is a lot of demonic qi." Han Fei froze for a moment. "Is there no difference between the two?" The hexagon starfish said, "There is a difference. The violent power in demonic qi is very dangerous, especially mixed demonic qi, which is even more dangerous. If you borrow the power of demonic qi, you will be infected with the spiritual energy in your body, and then you can cultivate as a demon." Han Fei didn't understand, but when he learned that demonic qi and spiritual energy could be transformed, He couldn't help but wonder why the half-mermaid stuffed an enormous amount of demonic chi into his body. More importantly, the demonic chi was absorbed by him. To be more precise, it seemed to be absorbed by the seed in his abdomen. Han Fei immediately kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. "Come on, have a piece." Han Fei summoned Little Fatty, Little Gold, Little Black, and Little White. He divided the 7 or 8 demonic stones that he dug out. Even the hexagon starfish had no problem eating them. Han Fei didn't believe that the nine-tailed mantis shrimp would have a problem eating them. Among them, Little Black, in particular, held a demonic stone in his mouth. Crunch, crunch. Just like chewing candy, a demonic stone was swallowed by Little Black in only a few seconds. Han Fei frowned. All the demonic stones were edible, but none of them reacted. They didn't jump or make a fuss. It didn't seem to be a big problem. So, demonic stones are no different from spiritual stones to a certain extent, right? Having figured that out, Han Fei wanted to have a taste. He kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and said, "Keep digging. Dig more of these things." Thud. However, in the next moment, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp suddenly unleashed a terrifying power and smashed the black copper mine dozens of meters deep. Boom. Han Fei looked back, only to see that it had collapsed again. Han Fei was so angry that he kicked it. "Be gentle. Do you want to bury your master here as a fossil?" However, Han Fei saw that the nine-tailed mantis shrimp's eyes were filled with agitation and redness. "Shoot. You can't eat them randomly." On the main peak of the Sea Demon Mountain report, "My lord, the strange stone mountain has collapsed again." Chapter 725. Han Fei sat on the ground gloomily. The current situation was a little awkward. The mountain kept collapsing. What was going on? Although the nine-tailed mantis shrimp sometimes used too much strength, it shouldn't have collapsed the mountain with one strike. However, it was useless to think about that now. Han Fei found that the demonic stones couldn't be eaten randomly. Little Black and Little White were fine, but Little Gold was already hitting the rocks with its head. Also, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp seemed a bit grumpy. Little Fatty had always been cold. At this moment, it was rolling some black copper ores with its tentacles and crushing them into pancake. Han Fei was so scared that he hurried to take it back. Han Fei glanced at the hexagon starfish. "Why are you fine?" The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes. "I didn't absorb the demonic chi. I slowly transformed it before I absorbed it." Puff. Han Fei slapped the hexagon starfish to the wall and roared, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" The hexagon starfish said pitifully, "Didn't you tell me?" Han Fei covered his head. That was enough. If there were sea demons up there, would they dig all the way down and kill him? On the peak of the strange stone mountain, a bunch of half-mermaids and red demons were standing here. The half-mermaid's head sensed for a long time before it said, "Why are the veins always shaking in the same place?" A half-mermaid asked, "Is there any creature below the veins?" Someone said, "Is it possible that some human beings ran down there? Are they trying to break the foundation of the Sea Demon Mountain?" The half-mermaids looked at the half-mermaid as if he were an idiot. Why would human beings choose the strange stone mountain if they really want to do something? Is there anything worth digging except the black copper ores and a few spiritual stones there? The half-mermaid gritted its teeth and said, "What if the human beings are trying to dig for demonic stones?" The half-mermaids looked at him even more weirdly. "Are you out of your mind? Human beings use demonic stones? They would have been killed by the demonic chi without us even needing to do anything." Rumble. Just as the large group of sea demons were deep in thought at the peak of the strange stone mountain, a mountain 3 mountains away from the strange stone mountain suddenly collapsed. All the sea demons were dumbfounded. That was a mountain that was almost 1,000 meters tall. As a result, it was collapsing at a speed visible to the naked eye. This time, it was no longer as simple as a 6 or 7 meter depression on the wondrous stone mountain. That was AF*King Mountain, and its height had dropped by half. Mountain rocks collapsed, demonic energy surged, extremely berserk. Immediately, the half-mermaid leader roared, "Damn it, let's go and take a look. What strange stone mountain collapsing, or the earth veins shaking, so the root cause is there." A large group of mermen ran to another mountain peak. Han Fei, on the other hand, was miserable. He and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp were hiding in a small hole no larger than 2 square meters. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp was forced to shrink a lot, and Han Fei even squatted on the ground. Gulp. Han Fei swallowed. Damn it. The quality of this lousy mountain is too low. I'm just digging a hole, why is there no end to it? Looking at the unstable cave that was full of cracks, Han Fei felt like it could collapse at any moment. He might even turn into a fossil. Hurry up, nine-tailed mantis shrimp, stop hammering. Dig. If you hammer this mountain down, your master will bury you alive. The nine-tailed mantis shrimp began to dig, and Han Fei did something too. He refined a pickaxe and dug with the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. This is 2F** king scary. I'd better dig a hole and go out. As for the spiritual stones he saw, Han Fei was almost speechless. This box of spiritual stones was basically low-quality spiritual stones. Adding them up, he had less than 5 million points of spiritual energy. If he had known that there were so few spiritual stones, he wouldn't have dug at all. He could have eaten spiritual fruits for a few days, okay? Clang, 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 clang. Han Fei also began to work hard. The demonic stones could still be dug, but Han Fei directly threw them into Forge the Universe. He didn't dare to use them now. If he absorbed them and then launched a sacrificing punch into the hole like the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, he might bury himself alive. Han Fei didn't care whether anyone would find out anything. Anyway, if someone found out, he would hide in Forge the Universe and come out in a few days. Han Fei and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp dug the hole with all their strength. It took them more than 3 days to dig. During this period, it collapsed several times. Han Fei was used to it. It must be because the black ore was brittle, so it collapsed easily. Han Fei was digging upward. He thought that he'd better get out first. Otherwise, how long would it take for him to dig in this mountain range? On this day, Han Fei didn't know where he was digging. Suddenly, he dug a hole. Yes, a hole that seemed to have been dug by someone else was connected to the hole he dug. Han Fei. The hexagon starfish. The hexagon starfish asked, "Is someone else also digging a hole?" Han Fei looked at this hole in a daze. Who would be so free to dig a hole in a sea demon's nest? The hexagon starfish exclaimed, "You!" Han Fei. Han Fei scratched his head and pondered for a long time. The other party had already dug a hole. How convenient! He didn't even need to fight with the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. Han Fei perceived that the hole seemed to be more than 40 kilometers away from the inside. Most importantly, it was a miracle that the hole hadn't collapsed. Before Han Fei decided whether to go in or not, Little White had already swam into the hole. Han Fei. The hexagon starfish asked, "Was this hole dug by Xia Shaochan?" Han Fei was also very surprised. "I don't think so. How could Xia Shaochan dig a hole?" However, Little White had already gone, so Han Fei certainly had to follow. Putting away the nine-tailed mantis shrimp, Han Fei chased Little White all the way. After running for more than 30 kilometers, the hexagon starfish suddenly said, "There is demonic qi." Han Fei sensed it. The demonic qi was a very strange pale red energy. When Han Fei found that there were not only spiritual energy spots but also this pale red light spots in his eyes, he knew that this place must be weird. This passage was longer than Han Fei imagined, more than 100 kilometers long. As Han Fei moved forward, there seemed to be more and more demonic qi. Han Fei closed the acupoints all over his body to prevent the demonic qi from entering his body. Unfortunately, no matter whether he could resist it or not, some demonic qi would still enter his body. Therefore, Han Fei found that the seed in his dantian began to spin slightly, as if it was absorbing the demonic chi that entered his body. Han Fei was hesitant. Should I absorb it all? He knew that absorbing this demonic chi might improve his strength. However, he didn't know if there would be any side effects. After all, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and Little Fatty had problems before. Besides, demonic chi should be used by sea demons for cultivation. He was neither a sea demon nor a sea demon's cultivation technique. God knew what would happen if he absorbed too much. When Han Fei rushed all the way to the end of the passage, his eyes widened. This was an empty mountain, and the walls of the mountain were all scarlet crystals. Demonic chi was escaping from the crystals all the time. But Han Fei didn't have time to be shocked by the environment here. The moment he rushed into the mountain, the violent demonic chi wrapped around Han Fei and tried to break into his body. Damn it! Come on! Little White, come back! Suddenly, Han Fei saw that Little White rushed directly to the center of the cave, into the dark red demonic chi. Han Fei found that in the center of the mountain, a big stone was entrenched there. Wait, metamorphosis water? It was a real stone, but Han Fei could feel that the infinity water in his body was trembling slightly. What else could cause the infinity water to tremble? Furthermore, Little White had already swum to the front of the stone and kissed it. Han Fei immediately said angrily, "Xia Shaochan, I know you are in the stone. What are you doing? Why are you here?" The stone didn't respond. Han Fei gritted his teeth. "If you don't answer, I'll go in." With that said, Han Fei stepped into the cave from the entrance. Immediately afterward, he heard the stone shout from the center of the mountain, "Get out! How did you find this place? You can't stay here." Han Fei frowned and scolded, "How did I come here? I'm looking for you. In order to find you, I dug for so many days that the mountain collapsed." A hole suddenly appeared on the stone, and Xia Shaochan stuck her head out. "Get out! Get out! The demonic chi here is so wild that even sea demons can't come in. If you absorb the escaping demonic chi, you will die." Han Fei sneered. "Then come out if you can. If you come out, I won't go in." Han Fei had already felt that a large amount of demonic chi was forcibly pouring into his body, and the seed in his dantian had begun to spin quickly. Han Fei's body shook and he took 2 steps forward. "Are you coming out or not? If you don't, I'll go in immediately." Xia Shaochan shouted, "Are you crazy? Get out!" A touch of redness flashed in Han Fei's eyes, and in the next second, he simply floated to the belly of the mountain. At that moment, the seed spun crazily, and there seemed to be a huge funnel in Han Fei's body that began to swallow demonic chi. Swish! Xia Shaochan finally came out. She hugged Han Fei and ran straight to the entrance of the cave, while saying to the hexagon starfish, "What are you looking at? Set up an array to block the entrance of the cave." However, Han Fei was a little stunned. Why was Xia Shaochan's body so slippery? He lowered his head, only to see glittering scales, some blue, some purple. What stunned him the most was that a soft and glittering tail appeared in front of his eyes. Chapter 726. Inside the hexagon starfish's door. Han Fei and Xia Shaochan were staring at each other. After staring at each other for a long time, Xia Shaochan pouted her lower lip, threw herself into Han Fei's arms, and burst into tears. Holding Xia Shaochan in his arms, Han Fei clapped his hands. Don't cry, don't cry. Well, I don't think it's a big problem. It's just a fishtail. Don't panic, don't panic." In fact, Han Fei was quite panicked. Not until this moment did Han Fei know why Xia Shaochan ran away and why Xia Shaochan refused to meet him. Although Han Fei had guessed this before, it was just a guess after all. After he killed Mo Qianshang, he began to suspect that Xia Shaochan had 2 spiritual beasts, and he guessed that Xia Shaochan was not a human being through the giant arowana. However, when this became a fact, Han Fei was still panicked. No one could have imagined that Xia Shaochan would turn into a mermaid just like that. Besides, no information had appeared in his eyes yet. That was to say, the demon purification pot couldn't read Xia Xiaochan's information. Wow! Woo! Xia Xiaochan cried so hard that her tears fell down. Han Fei comforted her. Don't be afraid. First of all, you are definitely not the half-mermaids we see now. Look at them, they have steel teeth, protruding cheekbones, and gills. They haven't fully evolved yet. You look like the kind that has fully evolved. However, Han Fei didn't say anything. Hearing that, Xia Xiaochan cried even louder. The hexagon starfish wisely chose to shut up. It didn't expect that Xia Xiaochan was a sea demon. It had always thought that Xia Xiaochan was a human being. The starfish was a bit confused and wondered, can a sea demon evolve into this? If so, can starfish evolve into humans? If a starfish could evolve into a human, would a starfish evolve into a man or a woman? What's the difference between a man and a woman? The series of questions made the hexagon starfish dizzy, and its head was in a mess. Forget it. Human beings are too complicated. I'd better be a quiet starfish. In the room, Xia Xiaochan cried for a long time and said while sobbing, "It's all that Yang Ying's fault. She injected demonic energy into me, but she couldn't hold it in anymore. Then, she acted up. When I woke up, I found that my body was changing, and then I became a fish." What? Han Fei patted Xia Xiaochan's back and comforted her. Don't be scared. This Yang Ying is truly despicable. When I get back, the first thing I'll do is kill her. Xia Xiaochan nodded while crying. Yes, the first thing is to kill her. This woman is too hateful. Han Fei nodded. Yes, she's not a human at all. Xia Xiaochan nodded while crying. Yes. She must be a fish too. Han Fei. Xia Xiaochan was still crying. Han Fei, however, was attracted by her tail. Every single scale was like a gemstone that flickered with a strange radiance. Some of the scales were turquoise and shone brighter than emeralds. Some of the scales were purple, giving off an inexplicable sense of nobility. Some of the scales were bluish-purple, which seemed to be a transitional color that perfectly connected the transition from purple to blue. Some of the scales were lavender or vermicelli, which looked very soft. Xia Xiaochan's tail was very long, not the kind that had a straight fork. Instead, it looked like a long tail made of ribbons. The exquisite curve seemed even more perfect than the curve of a human body. Han Fei couldn't help but be dazzled by it. Han Fei subconsciously touched Xia Xiaochan's scales. Then, Han Fei suddenly felt that Xia Xiaochan's body, which was hugging him, stiffened. Xia Xiaochan hurried to push Han Fei away. Blushing, she said shyly in a low voice, "Why are you touching my butt, Han Fei?" Han Fei swallowed. Well, I'm a little confused right now. Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan carefully, only to find that her face hadn't changed at all. She still looked like the beautiful Xia Xiaochan. Her hands didn't change either. There were no webs on them at all. Xia Xiaochan's arm joints and hair, on the other hand, were slightly different. At first, Han Fei thought that they were clothes, which were as soft as fine sand. However, when he took a closer look, he found that they weren't clothes at all, but fins that looked like gauze growing out of her body. But Han Fei would never admit that they were fins. How could fins be so beautiful? Xia Xiaochan's hair was a little purple. If he didn't look carefully, he wouldn't be able to tell. Seeing that Han Fei was looking at her, Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but burst into tears again. Seeing this, Han Fei said in a hurry, "Don't cry. Don't cry. It doesn't matter if you turn into a fish. The key is, can you still change back?" At this point, Xia Xiaochan was about to cry again. "It seems that I can't change it back." Han Fei took a breath. "So, you've been running like a crab all the way?" Xia Xiaochan nodded. "Sometimes a crab, sometimes a lobster, and sometimes a fish." Han Fei was lost for words. The metamorphosis water was truly amazing. It could change anything. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Can't we still use the metamorphosis water to transform into human beings?" But Xia Xiaochan patted her tail. My tail is too long. To become a human, one had to become very, very tall. Moreover, even though the myriad creations water could transform into anything, the myriad creations water couldn't transform into anything. However, when it comes to battle, unless I'm in my original state, I won't be able to unleash my full strength. Han Fei thought for a moment. Okay, don't panic. Since we're out, we're not in a hurry to go back. But why are you running to the nest of the sirens? Just now, how did you run into the belly of the mountain full of demon qi? Xia Xiaochan sighed. I followed the demonic qi here. I realized that ever since I'd inhaled the monstrous aura, I needed more and more. Then, I deliberately killed some half-mermaids and extracted their demonic qi. But that's not enough. Then, I sensed it here. Then why did you throw all the spirit awakening fluid to Master Hexagon Starfish? Xia Xiaochan was stunned. No. All my spirit awakening fluid is for you. The Hexagon Starfish suddenly said, You said that you wouldn't ask me for it. You said that the starfish drank it, and you said that you just needed to find Xia Xiaochan. Now I've found her. Xia Xiaochan was taken aback and then said angrily, Big Starfish, did you drink all the spirit awakening fluid? The Hexagon Starfish quickly explained, I didn't do it on purpose. The starfish couldn't help it. Besides, I left some for Han Fei. Han Fei was speechless. You King left some? I was the one who insisted on getting it back. Han Fei waved his hand. Forget it. I'll just grab some more. But why didn't you drink the spirit awakening fluid yourself? Xia Xiaochan frowned. I drank it. I drank a little and found that the spirit awakening fluid only slightly strengthened me. It's not enough. Besides, the spiritual energy in my body is changing, and what I need is a lot of demonic qi, not spirit awakening fluid. So, the spirit awakening fluid is not very useful to me. Han Fei seemed to have an epiphany. So, in fact, every time you have an attack, it's because of demonic qi? Xia Xiaochan nodded helplessly. Yes, it's because I need demonic qi. I knew it after I inhaled the demonic qi. Han Fei's eyes lit up. So, you're cured now? Xia Xiaochan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But I've become a fish now. I want to be a human, not a fish. Woo. Han Fei waved his hand. Don't panic. I have a way. Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes at Han Fei. What can you do? Do you still remember the fish avatar technique I got from the fiery mountain? Xia Xiaochan's eyes lit up. Isn't that a mortal-level combat skill? And I can transform into a fish, not a human. Han Fei nodded. It doesn't matter. If I can transform into a fish, I can transform into a human. I've been studying this technique recently, and now I need some time to continue to deduce it. Xia Xiaochan was surprised. Can you transform from a fish into a human? Han Fei nodded solemnly. It should be possible, but it may take a little time. By the way, are you going to keep inhaling the demonic qi in this mountain? Hearing this, Xia Xiaochan wiped her tears on the spot. First of all, I have to transform all the power in my body into demonic qi. I wanted to trap you in that mountain and let you dig me out. I should have left. I didn't expect you to dig me out so soon. Han Fei sneered. Do you think the nine-tailed mantis shrimp is good at digging holes? Phew! Han Fei took a long breath and suddenly poked Xia Xiaochan's tail with his finger. Xia Xiaochan hurriedly swung her tail to the side, looking shy. What are you doing? Haha. It seems to feel good. Let me touch it. You pervert. Han Fei smiled weirdly. It's not like I haven't touched it before. Come here. Go away. If you don't come over, I'll go over, I'll kiss you. P.S. You can't see the children's shoes in this chapter. If you keep urging me, I'll get angry. Every once in a while, someone urges me. I haven't finished writing yet. The 4th chapter. That's all for today. I know many people have guessed that Xia Xiaochan is a fish, but don't panic. Is it really that simple? This is a very complicated story, far more complicated than a fish. Well, I almost fell asleep writing today. End of this chapter. Chapter 727. Xia Xiaochan didn't know if Han Fei was really careless. But seeing that Han Fei didn't change after she turned into a fish, she was finally relieved. In fact, she didn't care what other people thought of her. But Han Fei, Luo Xiaobai, and the others were the only people Xia Xiaochan cared about. Especially Han Fei, who was a couple with her. Their relationship had deepened by another level. After messing around for a while, Han Fei finally got what he wanted. Ignoring Xia Xiaochan, who was blushing, he simply touched her tail. Han Fei clicked his tongue in wonder. Your tail is not hard at all. It's soft as if it's wearing a layer of gauze. Then, Han Fei was bitten by Xia Xiaochan. A long time passed. Xia Xiaochan asked, "How can you resist such violent demonic qi?" Han Fei said with a smile, "The body tempering technique that I've been practicing has amazing abilities. However, I still absorb some of it. But don't worry, I didn't absorb much, so it shouldn't be a big problem." Xia Xiaochan was confused. "Is that so?" Han Fei said with a weird smile. "What if I'm also a fish?" Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes. "Then we'll be two fish. We won't return to the Scattered Stars Island anymore. We'll just swim in the ocean." After chatting for a while, all the misunderstandings were cleared up, and they became close again. Han Fei was secretly relieved. According to Xia Xiaochan, the demonic qi in the belly of the mountain was so chaotic that even sea demons couldn't resist it. However, sea demons could cultivate with the demonic qi that escaped. Some talented sea demons could even cultivate to a very high level. Just like that, Xia Xiaochan gave her suspicions too. She said that there must be more than one place like the Sea Demon Mountain in the outer sea of the Scattered Stars Island. Xia Xiaochan suspected that the reason why there was such violent demonic qi here was because a very powerful sea demon died here. So, the demonic qi gathered and turned into a spring of demonic qi. Therefore, this place became one of the bases of sea demons. Now that he had found Xia Xiaochan, Han Fei didn't intend to go out for now. Xia Xiaochan needed to transform demonic qi here, and Han Fei needed to deduce the fish avatar technique here. At this point, Xia Xiaochan had run back into the spring of demonic beasts. Han Fei, however, didn't immediately deduce the fish evolution technique. He decided to fuse the fish transformation technique and the demonization scripture first. Fuse. Demonic Transformation Art, Demon Level High Quality, Introduction, a semi-finished transformation type cultivation method. It can successfully transform a human into a demon. The survival rate is as high as 90%. It was the beginning of the era of demonic cultivation and the method to refine demonic qi. Deduction cost 0/50 000 deduction result. Unknown note. The initial method has its drawback. Learn it cautiously. Go to hell, son of a turtle. Han Fei suddenly cursed, which gave the hexagon starfish a fright. The hexagon starfish didn't dare to speak either. It sneaked down from Han Fei's shoulder and clung to the rock wall, fearing that Han Fei would slap it. Han Fei was lost for words. Although there was an extra vine in the demon purification pot and the fish avatar technique could be deduced again, he remembered that the deduction of the fish avatar technique required 30 million points of spiritual energy. Now, although the fusion only cost 3 million, the deduction cost had increased to 50 million. This was too much. He had just saved more than 82 million points of spiritual energy. Now, it would cost 50 million points to deduce a demon-level high-quality technique. How could he live like this? Han Fei couldn't help but regret. At the beginning, he felt that he had enough spiritual energy and didn't consider the possibility that his spiritual energy would run out. But now, with a huge sum of 82 million points of spiritual energy, he still seemed so poor. Furious, Han Fei stuffed 7 or 8 spiritual fruits into his mouth in a row, and the hexagon starfish almost drooled at the sight. The hexagon starfish thought, "How I envy Han Fei. You have to eat 7 or 8 spiritual fruits just to be angry. Starfish wants to eat them too." Hundreds of thousands of points of spiritual energy didn't make much difference to Han Fei now. Naturally, the deduction of the void fishing art had to be postponed. What he was afraid of was that the demon transformation art still couldn't be upgraded after this deduction. At that time, if it cost him 100 million points of spiritual energy, how many spiritual fruits would he have to eat to deduce it for him? However, at this point, how could Han Fei not postpone it? However, before the deduction, Han Fei still needed to study the demon transformation art carefully. When he was at the mortal level, he had to study this art for a long time every time he deduced it, and this time was no exception. Only by understanding more of the history, experiences, and cultivation methods of humans and sea demons could he better understand the effects of cultivating the demonic transformation art. As Han Fei browsed through it, he learned that the demon transformation art was actually not created by humans. In other words, the demon transformation art was actually created by those who had successfully practiced the fish transformation art. After the great purge of human beings, there were indeed very few people who practiced the fish transformation art. However, the first batch of people who practiced the fish avatar technique survived in the ocean. Among them, some people became stronger and finally created the demon transformation art. It was also this person who started the era of demonic cultivators and was known as the Sea King. Han Fei couldn't help but think of the Sea King's secret technique he got. Was that technique also created by the Sea King? If he thought about it carefully, wasn't the Sea King and the fishing god antagonistic? One started the era of demonic cultivators and was the pioneer of the current sea demons. The other was holding a fishing rod in his hand. Could it be that this person created the great era of national fishing? Of course, this was still quite far away from Han Fei. According to the demon transformation art, since the era of demonic cultivators began, the war between human beings and sea demons had begun. It started countless years ago and hadn't ended yet. What Han Fei wasn't sure about was which period of the war the Age of Doom, he heard from the Snow God's Temple, was referring to. After all, the reason why the Snow God's Temple was abandoned was that not only the land sank in the Age of Doom, but also the sea demons invaded. As for the demon transformation art, there was no record of how to deduce this art, nor any examples. Almost all the records were about the battles. Therefore, Han Fei skimmed through it and skipped it. There seemed to be some very powerful big shots in it. But what did that have to do with him? In addition to these historical records, there was also the cultivation method of the demon transformation art. It was about how to develop one's demonic heritage from an ordinary sea demon. Wait, develop demonic heritage? Demonic heritage can be developed? Isn't it what one is born to be? Han Fei suddenly realized that he seemed to have discovered a big secret. Wow! The demonic heritage of sea demons is not inborn, but can be developed? If that was the case, it would be terrifying. This alone could probably attract countless people to join the ranks of sea demons. After all, it was a demonic heritage that could grow. How could an ordinary person withstand it? It must be noted that in this world, most people were fishers, ordinary people. Only a very small number of people were able to cultivate to a higher level. Why? Because the level of the spiritual heritage was too low. Han Fei hurriedly read on, only to find that it was about the use of demonic energy. The first sentence of the book. Demonic energy was a kind of heaven and earth energy of a higher level than spiritual energy. The explanation given was, spiritual energy was pure heaven and earth energy. Demonic energy was a new kind of energy born after the abnormal gathering of heaven and earth energy. It may come from the death of a strong master, or from the changes caused by the gathering of mysterious terrain. This kind of energy was more violent and could break the shackles of pure spiritual energy cultivation and develop a new cultivation system. After reading it all, Han Fei felt that he was almost brainwashed by this weird theory. Could it be that the strong had already begun to analyze the nature of the world? However, there were obviously many things in this demon transformation art that couldn't be explained. For example, how did ordinary creatures become sea demons? For example, did demonic cultivators have to find places where demonic energy gathered? What if they couldn't find it? Did they stop cultivating? For example, were there any sequelae of this cultivation? Could they transform? Could they change their cultivation methods? Han Fei glanced at Xia Shaochan, who was still transforming demonic energy, and gritted his teeth. Continue to deduce. At that moment, all the spiritual stones in Forge the Universe were turned into powder. The spiritual spring was rapidly evaporating, and the stored spiritual energy suddenly dropped by a few million. 50 million points of spiritual energy were directly swallowed by the demon purification pot. This guy didn't hold back at all. Soon after, a new chapter began to unfold amidst the fog. True Spirit Demonic Scripture, Heaven Level, Low Quality, Introduction, an incarnation cultivation method that can turn living creatures into demons. Legend has it that the first Sea King turned into a law of nature, wrote the demon's secret record, and sent it between heaven and earth to unlock the inheritance of demonic cultivation for all creatures. It contains the cultivation method of sea demons. Deduction cost: 0/100 million. Deduction result: unknown. Note: the Book of Enlightenment can enlighten all creatures, but it is extremely difficult to become a great demon. Hiss! When he saw this introduction, Han Fei gasped. Damn it, why does it sound even more mysterious than the void fishing art? The true spirit fishing art was only created by the 9 king-level masters. After it was created, heaven and earth cried together, and it rained. The creator of the true spirit demonic scripture had turned into a law of nature? And he opened the inheritance of demonic cultivation for all creatures? Han Fei swallowed. He was thinking about a question. What would human beings or sea demons become when they cultivated to the extreme? First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 728. Han Fei felt that this world was more terrifying than he had imagined. How strong could a strong master be? How big could this ocean be? What was the Age of Doom like? Where was the Immortal Palace? Compared to these, the so-called unknown place, the Scattered Stars Island, what the hell were they? However, Han Fei didn't have time to think about these now. Obviously, the deduction this time didn't achieve the desired effect. Although the true spirit demonic scripture looked very advanced, it was obviously only a demonic cultivation method and didn't have a way to transform a sea demon into a human being. Besides, the next deduction was even more outrageous. It directly required 100 million spiritual energy. This thing was even more expensive than the indestructible body and void fishing. After all, it was only a heaven-level, low-quality one. It was already so expensive for a low-quality one. What if it was a high-quality or divine-quality one? Han Fei even suspected that even if he deduced it again, he might not be able to deduce the sea demon cultivation method to transform into a human being. If that was the case, how much spiritual energy would he need? Han Fei couldn't help but feel a little helpless. Is my current consumption of spiritual energy already so high? Other people use tens of thousands or even thousands of spiritual energy, but he had already begun to use hundreds of millions of spiritual energy. Even if he could eat 20 spiritual energy a day, it would take him 2 months to get 100 million points of spiritual energy. Forget it. I'll buy the spiritual fruit in the future. Anyway, I can buy anything with money. So Han Fei made up his mind. I'm going to do it today. When Yang Ruoyun was only level 40, she could already transform from a fish into a human being. Can't you transform into a human being with this awesome demonic cultivation method? Under normal circumstances, Han Fei wouldn't have continued to deduce at this point, because it would be meaningless to deduce it again. This true spirit demonic scripture was an enlightening demonic scripture, which was actually the most suitable for learning. Once he deduced it to a higher level and couldn't learn it, what he deduced would be meaningless and could only be kept in his mind as a memory. After all, whether it was a human cultivation method or a sea demon's cultivation method, they all needed to be learned step by step. Han Fei also copied a jade slip and asked Xia Shaochan about it later. She had just become a sea demon, so she certainly didn't have any demonic cultivation method yet. At that time, he would first give her one to cultivate, so that she could perfectly transition to a higher level of demonic cultivation, which should be even better. Continue the deduction. With a thought from Han Fei, more than 1,500 spiritual fruits in Forge the Universe were shattered. The magnificent spiritual energy instantly filled Forge the Universe and then disappeared without a trace, as if it were swept away by a huge vortex. Han Fei's heart was bleeding. If they were eaten slowly, their comprehensive strength could be improved. The hexagon starfish clung to the rock wall and saw all of Han Fei's expressions. After all, it had 6 eyes and 6 brains. It had almost no blind spots in every direction. It was curious. What's with Han Fei's expression? Why did he feel as if he had been robbed of 10,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid? A moment later, a new cultivation technique appeared. Demonic Vein Divine Technique, Heaven Tier, High Grade, Introduction. An incarnation-type cultivation method, a demon cultivator's meridian opening method. The demonic vein derivation art broke through the barrier of the demonic vein and obtained a demonic vein that could grow without any obstacles. When this art was cultivated to the extreme, one would definitely become a greater demonic beast. Deduction cost 0/500 million. Deduction result unknown. Remarks: an excellent demonic cultivation technique. If you cultivate this technique, you will definitely become a sea spirit great demon. If you want to seek enlightenment, you need to have an epiphany. Puff! Han Fei felt that his eyes were dazzled. He didn't notice anything else, but he was stunned by the 500 million that would be spent on the deduction. Looking at the introduction of the technique again, Han Fei felt that he was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. F***CK your meridian opening method. I spent 100 million, and this is all you're showing me? Han Fei felt so heartbroken that he couldn't breathe. His face was so hideous that the hexagon starfish slowly climbed to the rock wall behind the cave. For some reason, the hexagon starfish felt that Han Fei was very dangerous at this moment, as if he was suffering some kind of unbearable pain. He even suspected that Han Fei was going to kill him. He didn't know who he was going to kill. In this damn place, it could only be Xia Shaochan. Kill Xia Shaochan? That's impossible. Then, the more he thought about it, the more the hexagon starfish felt that something was wrong. He'd better stay away from Han Fei. Han Fei trembled all over. Should he spend the 500 million? If he did, the meridian opening method had already been invented. She was already a sea spirit. Seek enlightenment? What kind of enlightenment? In any case, no matter what Tao he sought, this demonic vein divine technique had an extremely high evaluation. In the demon race, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a rare cultivation technique. But why don't you turn into a human being for me? Han Fei's eyelids were cramping. Looking at Xia Shaochan, who was sitting cross-legged above the spring of demonic beasts with her eyes closed, he tried to hold back the excitement in his heart. Steady, steady. Once I can turn into a human being, I'll be able to practice it myself. It'll be an incredible technique. But Han Fei still felt sorry when he thought about it. He thought of Yang Ruoyun again. That damn Yang Ruoyun. Why can you turn into a human being so soon after you become a demon? Han Fei was full of confusion. Was what he saw an illusion? However, he had already bragged about it. Even if he didn't, he couldn't just watch Xia Shaochan turn into a sea demon and not be able to change back. Making another copy of the Demon Heritage Divine Technique, Han Fei chose to continue deducing it. Continue deducing. Han Fei was going all out for the 500 million points of spiritual energy. A way out? No way out. He firmly believed that sea demons must have a technique to turn into human beings. Yang Ruiyun Emo Qianshang Suimo. They were all human beings. Han Fei believed that they were all unparalleled heavenly talents among the sea demons and that they practiced the most powerful techniques of the demon race. But since they could turn into human beings, he could certainly deduce it. Bam! In Forge the Universe, nearly 8,000 spiritual fruits and spiritual stones were shattered. The intense spiritual energy almost gathered into a river and was all swept away by the big vortex transformed by the demon purification pot. However, when Han Fei deduced again, above the sea and the sky, bloody clouds were gathering, waves were surging, and thunder was rumbling within hundreds of thousands of kilometers. At that moment, on the scattered stars island, a figure soared to the sky. Shueishenqi looked extremely solemn. Behind him, a group of experts with a ridiculous number of star ranks wore astonished looks on their faces. Someone said, "What happened on the sea? Why did the world suddenly change so drastically?" Someone sighed. "Is there any treasure?" Shueishenqi ordered, "Pass down my order. Everyone on the scattered stars island is forbidden to go out. All those who are outside are recalled. The scattered stars island is in the first level of combat readiness. I'll go and have a look." Immediately, someone said, "General, don't take the risk alone. I'll go." A 10-star powerhouse stopped Shueishenqi. "You stay on the scattered stars island. We can handle this kind of thing alone." On the entire scattered stars island, everyone stopped what they were doing, raised their heads, and looked up at the sky. Looking at the blood-red sky, they were all shocked. Outside the scattered stars island, many half-mermaids stood on the sea and watched this scene solemnly. Someone said, "Is there a heavenly talent among humans? How can it cause such a phenomenon?" A sea demon ordered, "Pass down my order. Order all the low-level sea demons to set up a net of 300,000 kilometers. But if there are any abnormalities, report immediately." However, while everybody was debating, and when someone from the scattered stars island was about to go to sea, the bloody clouds in the sky gradually faded. The rumbling thunder just now was gone too. Slowly, the sky was restored. Many people were dumbfounded. Why did the abnormal phenomenon disappear so quickly? How could they find the source of the phenomenon if they didn't stay for a while longer? However, Han Fei, who was below the sea demon mountain, had no idea what was happening outside. He was widening his eyes and looking forward to it. It has to happen. It has to happen. When the mist was gone, a new technique appeared, and information popped up in Han Fei's eyes. Demon God Scripture, Heaven Level, Divine Quality, Introduction. This is a technique that's close to Tao. The Demon God Scripture is divine. If Tao can't be Tao, all creatures will surrender. Deduction cost 0/10000000000 deduction result. Unknown note. This is the current deduction limit of the demon purification pot. Another deduction will involve the mysteries of nature and will damage the demon purification pot. Pooh. Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. He really vomited this time, and blood was flowing out of his nostrils too. However, it wasn't because Han Fei was wounded, but because he was infuriated. Han Fei slapped the rock wall with his backhand. Immediately, the rock wall collapsed to the ground, and the hexagon starfish fell directly from the rock wall. Then, he swooshed into the channel. The hexagon starfish rolled his eyes in fear. Han Fei was too horrifying. The man was so ferocious that the starfish couldn't be more panicked. Xia Shaochan was alarmed too. Seeing that Han Fei vomited blood, she changed her expression and charged at him. Han Fei, what's wrong? Why are you vomiting blood? Are you hurt? Xia Shaochan was so anxious that she didn't know what to do. Han Fei wiped his mouth. I'm fine. Han Fei was infuriated. Son of AB*TCH, what kind of technique is this? It's almost a Dao. What's wrong with you turning into a human? Also, the deduction cost was 1 billion. F***CK, you're 1 billion. Even if you sell me, I can't get 1 billion aura now. Also, the demon purification pot is on strike. It's only a heaven-level, divine quality technique. How can it deduce the limit? Aren't you very capable? You can even deduce a venerable level technique. How can you not deduce a heaven-level, divine quality technique? Han Fei felt extremely desperate. This time, he really had no money to deduce it. He had used up all his money, and the remaining spiritual energy from various sources was only about 10 million. Compared with 1 billion, Han Fei only felt deep despair. Xia Shaochan was so anxious that she burst into tears. What's wrong with you? Did you try the fish avatar technique? Are you stupid? You are a human being. You are not a demon. A trace of determination flashed in Han Fei's eyes, and he wiped his nosebleed. Don't panic. It's not a big problem. Let's just not go back. Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 729. Xia Shaochan obviously didn't believe that Han Fei was fine. At this moment, she grabbed Han Fei and asked, "Tell me first, what did you do just now? Why did you vomit blood?" Han Fei gave the true spirit demonic scripture to Xia Shaochan and said, "Actually, the fish avatar technique I got is a sealed demon cultivation technique. Just now, I tried to break the seal by force and got this thing out." Xia Shaochan took the true spirit demonic scripture and read it, only to be dumbfounded. Smack! Xia Shaochan slapped Han Fei's arm and said angrily, "You broke the seal just for this?" Han Fei grinned. "It takes a lot of spiritual energy to open the seal. I'm poor now." Xia Shaochan hesitated. "Since this fish avatar technique is a sea demon's cultivation technique, you'd better not break the seal. I guess it's hard to turn a fish into a human being." Han Fei shook his head. "There must be a way. You don't know, but I accepted a mission to explore a treasure trove a few days ago. One of my teammates is a sea demon who looks exactly like a human being. Even an 8-star expert can't tell him apart." Xia Shaochan was immediately refreshed. "Really?" Han Fei nodded solemnly. "Yes. His name is Suemo. He colluded with the sea demons. Since he can turn into a human being, the sea demon expert must have a technique to transform into a human being. We're right below the sea demon's nest. This is a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. We can try it out secretly." Xia Shaochan opened her mouth. "But there must be a lot of sea demon experts here. We can't beat them." Han Fei grinned. "Didn't you say that the demonic chi here is too violent? If we can't handle it, we can dig a hole above the spring of demonic chi. I don't think they dare to break in." Xia Shaochan shook her head. "Maybe. Regular sea demons may not be able to withstand the violent demonic chi, but what about the particularly powerful ones? I'm not sure. Besides, you're a human being. You can't resist the violent demonic chi, which will conflict with the spiritual energy in your body and kill you." Han Fei looked back at the hexagon starfish. "I can hide in the gate of the hexagon starfish. It's not afraid of demonic chi." The hexagon starfish quickly responded, "Starfish are scared too. Starfish can only absorb the demonic chi slowly, not crazily." Han Fei said angrily, "Shut up. If I say you can do it, you can do it." Hexagon starfish. Han Fei glanced at Xia Shaochan. "What about you? Why aren't you afraid of this demonic aura at all?" Xia Shaochan was a little confused. I don't know. I just feel that there's not much difference between this demonic energy and spiritual energy." This sentence hurt Han Fei's heart. The half-mermaids who heard this would probably feel even more heartbroken. Demons are really infuriating. Han Fei's eyes were firm. Then let's leave it for now. Let's think of a way to knock out 2 sea demons and ask them. By the way, where are we now? Xia Xiaochan thought for a moment. It seems to be in an undersea mountain range. I can also turn invisible, and I have demonic aura and metamorphosis water. Therefore, it was easier when I came in. I once saw that many sea demons would gather towards a mountain in the center. That should be the main peak of the sea demons. Han Fei pondered for a moment. Let's dig over first. If we can't, I'll find a chance to tie 2 half-mermaids back with the spirit forbidden net. It was reasonable to be afraid of moving under the enemy's feet. However, Han Fei didn't feel this way. At the very most, when he was escaping, he could just destroy the entire tunnel. With the hexagon starfish's array and Xia Xiaochan's metamorphosis water, he could hide in a stone made of infinity water and wouldn't be discovered so easily. 7 days later, Han Fei dug for more than 300 kilometers before he reached the inside of a mountain. On the way, Han Fei saw no less than 100 spiritual stones and even an ultra-quality spiritual stone. However, Han Fei didn't dare to take it this time. He was mainly afraid that the channel would collapse and he wouldn't have a chance to run out. It seemed that these spiritual stones were vital to maintaining the stability of a mountain. Suddenly, Han Fei asked in surprise, "Do you feel that the spiritual energy here is stronger?" Xia Xiaochan nodded. "I feel that the demonic qi here has weakened a lot." Han Fei smiled. "Why don't they use the mountain with the demonic spring as their base? Why do they come to the mountain with rich spiritual energy?" Xia Xiaochan rolled her eyes. Most sea demons also absorb spiritual energy. They can transform spiritual energy into demonic qi. That's what I'm doing now, and I've already transformed most of it. Han Fei frowned. Is the transformation so slow? Xia Xiaochan flicked her tail. Not really. The transformation of spiritual energy into demonic qi is one thing, and the demonic qi is also changing my body. It seems to be building a new set of meridians, so it's very slow. Han Fei couldn't help but be shocked. This was a bit similar to the Demon Heritage Divine Technique. But the Demon Heritage Divine Technique seemed to be more advanced. It was said to be able to break the barrier of the demonic heritage, so it didn't seem to need the demonic heritage. Han Fei was thinking. He had to find a suitable excuse to give the Demon Heritage Divine Technique to Xia Xiaochan, which should be much better than the true spirit demonic scripture. Clang! While digging, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp suddenly took out a spiritual stone. Han Fei's eyes slightly lit up. A high-quality spiritual stone? Forget it. Just throw it on the ground. After we catch the half-mermaids and interrogate them, we'll collect the spiritual stones along the way. Xia Xiaochan exclaimed, "Huh? There seems to be a lot of spiritual energy in this mountain." Han Fei said with a smile, "That's for sure. Their base is here, and it's convenient to bury spiritual stones in this mountain for cultivation." However, a moment later Han Fei was shocked. There were indeed a lot of spiritual stones. He had already dug out hundreds of low-grade and mid-grade spirit stones and more than 30 high-grade spirit stones. Looking at these spiritual stones, Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He really wanted to put them all away. On the other side, the hexagon starfish was trying to hide a high-quality spiritual stone, only to be slapped away by Han Fei. "Don't you dare try to hide it. Pick it up when we run away. Do you want to trap us here until the mountain collapses?" The hexagon starfish looked at the spiritual stones on the ground and said regretfully, "Can I go back and wait for you?" Han Fei sneered. "What do you think?" Suddenly, Xia Xiaochan said, "Wait, there's demonic qi." As she talked, Xia Xiaochan's eyes seemed to have turned silver. She raised her head and looked up. It wasn't until a long time later that Xia Xiaochan finally recovered. She looked at Han Fei and said, "A lot of sea demons seem to be gathered up there." Above the sea demon mountain, Many half-mermaids were gathering. A half-mermaid leader roared, "The earth veins have been shaking recently. However, it might be a good thing. The earth veins seem to be gathering. We don't know when the earth veins will shake again. So, take advantage of this opportunity to cultivate here and strive to have a breakthrough." A half-mermaid said, "My lord, the earth veins are gathering abnormally. Is it possible that someone is stealing our earth veins?" The leader looked at the half-mermaid as if he were an idiot. "Are you an idiot? If someone were to steal the earth veins, they would have run out of spiritual energy. How could you possibly have a chance to cultivate?" Inside the mountain, Han Fei and Xia Shaochan watched helplessly. The spiritual stones that they had set up all the way for quick recycling were spreading out spiritual energy. Also, the dispersing spiritual energy was being guided upward. It seemed that the spiritual energy had been absorbed by someone. Han Fei's eyes bulged. "Isn't this too outrageous? We dug up the spiritual stones through hard work. They're simply enjoying the fruits of our labor." Xia Shaochan was lost for words too. They must have come up to cultivate. Then what do we do? How can we catch them? Han Fei said gloomily, "Cultivate? The spiritual energy I dug up is for them to cultivate?" Han Fei couldn't help but say, "There must be a lot of demonic stones in the spring of demonic spirits, right? Let's dig up some demonic stones. What do you think if we exchange them for the demonic stones?" Xia Shaochan grinned. "Okay. If they absorb a lot of demonic qi recklessly, it will be hard for them to transform their cultivation. It might even cause internal conflict. Then, we'll capture one or two of them." At this moment, the hexagon starfish asked, "Can we take the spiritual stones away now?" Han Fei pondered for a moment. "Not yet. Let them absorb it for a while. We'll go back and dig for demonic stones." Xia Shaochan said, "I'll go back and dig for demonic stones. You can cultivate with them here. By then, I can replace the spiritual stones with demonic stones. Logically speaking, the channel won't collapse." Han Fei realized that it did make sense. He nodded and said, "Then you go and come back quickly. I'll absorb the spiritual energy again." Xia Shaochan went back to dig for demonic stones. Han Fei set up quite a few spirit-gathering arrays, only to see that the spiritual energy nearby was surging crazily. Han Fei sneered. "Do you think the spiritual stones that I dug up are for your cultivation? Give them back to me." Above the mountain, a half-mermaid was surprised. "Why can't we absorb the spiritual energy?" A half-mermaid exclaimed, "Hiss! Spiritual energy is gathering in the veins. Has the sea demon mountain been connected to the underground veins?" The half-mermaid leader sensed it again and said in relief, "I chose this place as the main peak because I considered that it might be a place where spiritual veins converge. It seems that it's finally converging even though it's a few years late." Someone immediately flattered, "You're wise, my lord. However, my lord, the spiritual energy doesn't seem easy to absorb." The half-mermaid leader sneered. "Of course. This is because of the sudden change of the veins. The gathering of spiritual energy isn't stable yet. Of course, it's not easy for you to absorb it. Just wait a moment. It should be done soon." Below the mountain, sitting in the spirit-gathering array, Han Fei cursed, "You want to compete with me for resources? Come on, let's absorb each other." 3rd. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 730. The hexagon starfish was dumbfounded. Wasn't Han Fei absorbing spiritual energy too fast? Also, why could he keep absorbing spiritual energy? Shouldn't his body be full after a while? Little did they know that Han Fei was in a great mood at this moment. Such pure spiritual energy, and such a huge amount of absorption, finally made him feel a little better. Although the spiritual energy contained in the spiritual stones wasn't enormous, there were still tens of millions of them, not to mention that he had only dug one tunnel. If he could live in the mountain long enough and dig hundreds of tunnels, he might be able to get hundreds of millions of points of spiritual energy. After all, this was the base of sea demons anyway. How could it be called a base without hundreds of millions of points of spiritual energy? About 2 hours later, Xia Shaochan came. She sprinted and scattered demonic stones on her way. Seeing that Han Fei was still absorbing spiritual energy, Xia Shaochan couldn't help but say, "Stop absorbing and put away the spiritual stones. Let's dig out another tunnel. It's more important to catch the enemy." Han Fei opened his eyes and asked in surprise, "Huh? You're digging demonic stones so fast?" Xia Shaochan said casually, "There are demonic stones below the demonic spring. They've been accumulating for years, and nobody is digging them. How can they not be fast?" Han Fei waved his hand and collected all the spiritual energy on the ground. Then, he kicked the nine-tailed mantis shrimp. "Change to Fang Xian. Let's keep digging." Above the sea demon mountain, hundreds of half-mermaids were waiting. They were waiting for the spiritual energy to gather and erupt. Suddenly, a half-mermaid opened its eyes. Not good. The spiritual heritage has become a demonic heritage. One of the half-mermaids was still absorbing spiritual energy, only to absorb tremendous demonic energy. Instantly, the half-mermaid roared with bloodshot eyes. The demonic energy inside its body surged out, and it stabbed its partner with its harpoon. "Asshole! Everybody stop training. Something is wrong with the spiritual heritage. A few companion spirits are shrimps and crabs. Dig a few holes and check. Don't dig for spiritual stones without permission, or you'll be severely punished." The sea demons finally realized that something was wrong and planned to dig a few holes to find out what was going on. However, Han Fei and Xia Shaochan had already started a new round of digging. The sea demons were quickly digging holes too. Dum, dum, dum. Han Fei and Xia Shaochan stopped digging and pricked up their ears in confusion. Xia Shaochan frowned. "Not good, it seems that we've been discovered. Is it digging down from above?" Han Fei bared his teeth. He had been digging hard enough, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp was digging in the cave. Did the nine-tailed mantis shrimp notice it? Han Fei was stunned. "Don't panic. Let's wait for them to dig it out and catch 2 of them. Then, we'll run back to the demonic spring. I don't think they know where our base camp is." Xia Shaochan tilted her head and glanced at Han Fei. "You're really bold. Then they will know that there are people under the mountain." Han Fei said casually, "It's okay. Let's dig a few fake roads for them to find. When the spiritual energy in your body is completely transformed, we'll go out first. It's more convenient to catch people in the sea than in the sea demon's nest." The hexagon starfish suggested, "I think we'd better go. What if the sea demons dig it down?" Pondering for a moment, Han Fei asked, "Can experts dig holes fast?" Xia Shaochan, the hexagon starfish. Xia Shaochan was much more sensitive to demonic qi than regular sea demons. Very soon, she locked onto the direction where one of the sea demons was digging. So, Han Fei took out all the spiritual stones nearby and waited for the sea demons to come down. He waited for half a day. In the concealment array and the breath concealment array, Han Fei was holding a big net, and on the other side, Xia Shaochan had turned into a crab with the metamorphosis water. "Little Six, do you think there's anything wrong with the sea demon mountain? Why do I feel that there's less spiritual energy? Did the earthquake of the earth veins leak the demonic qi barrier?" In a cave, 2 half-mermaids were digging quickly. It was very difficult to dig an undersea mine, so they weren't very fast and were still chatting. "Dum, dum." The half-mermaid named Little Six snorted. "I don't think so. The demonic qi barrier has existed for years. It would have been leaked long ago." The other half-mermaid sighed. "I'm told that human beings are powerful heavenly talents. It would be great if we could absorb the power in the demonic qi barrier." Little Six said with a smile, "According to Miss Yuji, some heavenly talents in the boundless sea can absorb demonic qi and transform it. But I don't think we can do that." "Well, I don't know how long we'll have to fight against human beings. Why do we have to rob human beings of spirit-awakening fluid? Can't we rob other places? Little Six bared his teeth and said, "There are too many big demons in the deep sea. We might not be able to defeat them. Besides, our bloodline was born here, and our mission is to fight against the humans." Why? Little Six was stunned. "I don't know. I've been fighting human beings since I was awakened. However, according to Miss Yuji, human beings are all crooked. They want the spirit-awakening fluid so that they can become experts and then kill us. In order not to be killed by them, we have to fight back. I'm told that Miss Yuji lives in the capital. It seems that we are millions of kilometers away from here." Little Six looked fascinated. "I heard that if we become a real sea demon, we will have a chance to go to the capital. Let's work hard. I think it's going to happen soon." "Okay." Boom. Just as the two half-mermaids were talking, the ground under them suddenly collapsed, and a pile of rocks fell, pressing the two of them under the rocks. However, the strength of the half-mermaids was not weak at all. As the two half-mermaids bombarded, large pieces of gravel were crushed. At this moment, Little Six suddenly said, "Ha! There is a small cave below. I sense spiritual stones." Little Six, the leader, said, "We can't take spiritual stones. Don't listen to him. There are only the two of us here. Let's take it first. Who will know that we dug up spiritual stones?" The two of them were overjoyed and hurriedly dug down. However, as soon as the passage was drilled through, suddenly, a big crab suddenly raised its pincers, and the two immediately prepared to fight back. But in the next second, the two of them suddenly changed their expressions, and a big net had covered them from behind. Han Fei caught the two half-mermaids with the spirit-forbidding net and roared, "Let's go!" As Han Fei waved his hand and collected the spiritual stones, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp quickly punched the wall of the cave. Boom! Large pieces of stones almost filled the passage in an instant, and Han Fei and Xia Shaochan ran all the way. Above the sea demon mountain, a bunch of half-mermaids surrounded them. A half-mermaid was surprised. I remember that Little Six and 17 dug here, didn't they? Were they buried?" A half-mermaid spread out his senses. "I sense that it's all stones down there. Where are Little Six and 17? Inform the leader." Han Fei ran crazily and collected the spiritual stones on the way, and the nine-tailed mantis shrimp smashed the passage now and then. After only a moment, deafening noises were echoing non-stop. The half-mermaid leader above the mountain roared, "Ask all the diggers to come out. The earth veins are shaking. Why is the area of the collapse so small?" "My lord, Little Six and 17 are gone." The half-mermaid leader frowned. "Were they buried in the mountain?" "No, my lord. I think they're gone. The cave they dug collapsed, but I can't sense them." The half-mermaid leader was surprised. You can't sense them?" A moment later, the half-mermaid leader stood in a pit and couldn't have looked more awful. "Inform everyone that human beings have invaded. Lock down the entire sea demon mountain and find them. They must be found." The half-mermaid leader had sensed the lingering air of human beings in the pit. He couldn't have been mistaken. At this moment, he suddenly realized that it wasn't the earth veins that were shaking, but that someone had dug into the earth veins. The half-mermaid leader roared, "Focus on the strange stone mountain and the collapsed Daching mountain. The human villains must have dug in from those two places." While the sea demons searched for Han Fei and Xia Shaochan, they had returned to the spring of demonic spirits with two half-mermaid. The two sea demons were horrified to see the spring of demonic spirits. A tall and slender half-mermaid looked at the spring of demonic spirits in fear. "Human beings, you're dead for breaking into the spring of demonic spirits." The other half-mermaid bared its fangs and grabbed the spirit-forbidden net. "You'll be corrupted by demonic chi and die a miserable death." Inside the cave, a head suddenly popped out of the giant crab. "Do you two know how sea demons can turn into human beings?" The two half-mermaids were stunned. What kind of monster could a head grow out of a crab? 4th chapter. Asking for votes. I just finished it, but it's a little late. I haven't moved for a day. I can't miss the chapter tomorrow. Identity revealed, life and death crisis, end of this chapter. Chapter 731. Han Fei found a problem. He suspected that the demon purification pot wouldn't show information to highly intelligent or humanoid creatures, or it would only show information in certain states. For example, Han Fei couldn't see anything from these two half-mermaid. But he could see Yang Ruoyun and Mo Qianchang back then. Was it because they were both about to transform? Hiding in the crab shell transformed by the metamorphosis water, Xia Xiaochan stared at the two sea demons coldly. I'm asking you a question. Do you know how sea demons transform into human beings? The two half-mermaids shook their heads at the same time. No. Among them, the half-mermaid named Little Six sneered. Even if I know, I won't tell you humans. Han Fei glanced at Xia Xiaochan and said telepathically, it doesn't matter if you show up. They will die sooner or later anyway. I'd like to see if you can scare them with your identity. Xia Xiaochan nodded, and the crab shell dissipated with a swish. Xia Xiaochan's real body floated above the demonic spring that was surging with demonic qi. The two half-mermaids were dumbfounded by this scene. Hiss. A sea demon? Is this a royal lady? The two half-mermaids looked at each other in bewilderment. They had never seen a sea demon of Xia Xiaochan's level before. She was simply too beautiful. The scales that shone with an enchanting light, and the fins that fluttered like colorful silk? Was she really a sea demon? Han Fei slapped each of the two half-mermaids and said, How dare you not kneel in front of the holy lady? Do you want to be slapped? The holy lady? The two half-mermaids were dumbfounded too. Xia Xiaochan looked much more noble than Miss Yuji. At least, Miss Yuji didn't have such an outstanding temperament or such beautiful scales. Han Fei turned their heads. The holy lady has been hiding among human beings since she was a child. A few days ago, the human race was in chaos and the sea was in turmoil. Don't you know? The holy lady broke the human race's trick on her own. However, she was also beaten back to her original form. You two idiots, kneel properly. The two half-mermaids knelt down to Xia Xiaochan in confusion. At this time, only the hexagon starfish's eyes were rolling. These two half-mermaids were probably doomed to meet Han Fei. Just like me, it's a little tragic. However, a half-mermaid looked at Han Fei and asked, Then who are you? Han Fei's face turned cold. Me? I am the protector of the Saintess. Don't look down on me just because I'm a human, but I was the one who protected the Saintess all the way here. See that? The Saintess was severely injured and had to use demonic energy to heal. Think about it, apart from the Saintess, who else can cultivate in a place where demon aura is rampant? The two half-mermaids were dumbfounded. A human guarding the sea demons? Why does it sound like I'm listening to a heavenly book? Little Six asked. We know that this lord must be a member of the sea demon royal family, but does the royal family not have a humanoid transformation technique? Han Fei looked at him as if he were an idiot. What royal family? The Saintess was a descendant of the Sea King. In the infinite ocean, there is an undersea holy city, where the Saintess comes from. Also, the Saintess has lived in the human race since she was a child, so of course, she doesn't have the secret techniques of the demon race. What's wrong with your brains? The other half-mermaid took a breath. The undersea holy city? Isn't the biggest one the royal city? Smack. Han Fei slapped him again. Under the holy city, there are 13,500 royal cities. How can a mere royal city be compared with the undersea holy city? Wow. The two half-mermaids were completely dumbfounded. 13,500 royal cities? Isn't this a little too much? Xia Xiaochan's beautiful eyes curved and she glanced at Han Fei. This guy is really good at bragging. Nonsense comes out of his mouth. In the blink of an eye, she had become a saintess and a descendant of the Sea King? The question is, do you know who the Sea King is? The two half-mermaids were struggling. On the one hand, Han Fei was a human being, so they were vigilant. On the other hand, Xia Xiaochan was indeed a very noble figure and a big shot who could directly use demonic qi barriers. Miss Yu Ji had tried to use the demonic qi barrier, but she only persisted for 100 seconds before the demonic qi in her body began to go haywire, so she had to retreat. Little Six asked the last question, "Since the Saintess is here, why don't you go directly to our leader?" Han Fei rolled his eyes and looked at the two of them contemptuously. The Saintess has a heavenly bloodline. A drop of blood can awaken a creature, and 2 drops can transform a creature into a demon. But now your strength has been greatly damaged. Go to your leader? What if your leader has evil intentions? All you need to know is that if you tell me the way to transform into a human, the Saintess can return to the human race. At that time, I'll give you two some gifts and you two will enjoy endless benefit. Han Fei immediately said to Xia Xiaochan via voice transmission, "Show them the true spirit demonic scripture. We'll take it back later." Xia Xiaochan stood proudly in the chaotic demonic qi, pointed her finger, and a jade slip flew out. Xia Xiaochan said, "Since it's not easy for you to cultivate, I'll give you the creation demonic scripture. This was obtained by the Sea King as a sea spirit. In less than 3 years, you will have a chance to become a sea spirit." Wow, a sea spirit? Little Six and the other half-mermaid quickly took the jade slip and skimmed through it, only to be shocked. The first Sea King turned into a sea spirit, wrote the demonic secret record, and stored it between heaven and earth? Opened the demonic cultivation heritage for all creatures? It contained the cultivation method of sea demons? Moreover, this was a genuine heaven-grade demonic technique, a technique that could not be deceived. The true spirit demonic scripture was something that the two of them had never heard of before. The two of them were not fools. This cultivation technique was simply too powerful. It was so powerful that their bodies were trembling right now. Immediately, the two of them knelt to Xia Xiaochan again and again. How could they resist? "Thank you for your gift, Saintess. We swear to follow you until death." Smack! Han Fei slapped them again. "Why don't you look at yourselves? Do you think you deserve to follow the Saintess? This true spirit demonic scripture is already a great favor to you. Why don't you tell us how to transform into a human being?" Neither of the two sea demons liked Han Fei. Humans are still humans. They only know how to bully sea demons. We've only said a few words and you've already slapped us a few times. If it weren't for the Saintess, if it weren't for the spirit forbidden net, we would have poked you to death, Little Six said. "Thank you, Saintess, for your gift. Unfortunately, we haven't learned how to transform into a human being yet." Han Fei's eyes widened. "You haven't learned it? The Saintess learned it as soon as she learned it. The Saintess just doesn't know this technique." Little Six said, "But we don't have the technique." Han Fei didn't feel good. However, he didn't expect these two to have it. As long as he found out who really had it from these two, it would be the same. In the future, he could find a way to catch that person. However, if these two really didn't have it, he might as well kill them first, but at this moment, the other half-mermaid said, "We only have the technique." Han Fei's eyes lit up and he cursed, "Then why don't you take it out? The Saintess is so powerful. As long as you deduce it with your supreme technique, you'll be able to figure out the technique, won't you?" The half-mermaid opened its mouth. "Is there such a peerless technique?" Han Fei sneered. "Even the Sea King has transformed into a heavenly law and educated all living creatures. How can the descendants of the Sea King not have such techniques? Take it out." "Wait a moment. Let me make a copy." After a while, the half-mermaid took out a jade slip in a daze. He was still thinking, what kind of talent does the Sea King have? The Sea King's secret technique that he practiced was created by the Sea King, wasn't it? So, it shouldn't be difficult for his descendants to deduce a technique, right? Xia Xiaochan's eyes widened and she kept blinking. She was really fooled by Han Fei? Han Fei took the humanoid technique, glanced at it, and a string of information popped up. Low-level human simulation technique, spirit level, mid-quality, introduction. The siren shape-shifting technique imitates the movements of humans and allows them to take human form. Practicing the human simulation technique can help improve the usage of combat technique. Deduced art. Advanced human simulation technique deduction cost. 0/500 000. Han Fei didn't feel good when he saw the technique. Han Fei had always thought that the fish transformation technique could transform into a human and a fish when it was deduced to the highest level. But now that he thought about it, maybe he was wrong. The fish transformation technique was deduced to turn into a demon. Then, if a sea demon wanted to turn into a human, did it need a human simulation technique? So, there were actually two sets of techniques to begin with. He thought that one set of techniques could solve the problem. Immediately, Han Fei felt like vomiting blood. It only cost 500,000 points of spiritual energy, and it was a spirit-level, mid-quality technique? Son of AB*TCH. Empiricism is killing me. Little Six squinted at Han Fei. Human, why don't you give the human simulation technique to the Honorable Saintess? Han Fei nodded. Yes. You two did a good job. The Saintess will remember you. Poochie. The blood-drinking knife was unsheathed, and Han Fei killed the two of them in front of their pious eyes. The speed at which Han Fei turned hostile was even faster than a meteor. The hexagon starfish shuddered all over as it watched. When it saw the two of them take out the art of personification, it knew that they were done for. However, it didn't occur to it that Han Fei would attack so quickly and cleanly. He annihilated them in the blink of an eye. Han Fei took out their sea-swallowing seashells, grabbed the true spirit demonic scripture, and tossed it to Xia Xiaochan. Xia Xiaochan rushed over with a swish. What do you think? Is it okay? Han Fei grinned. Yes, it's not a problem. However, I still need to deduce it. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 732. Xia Xiaochan couldn't stay calm when she heard that Han Fei still needed to deduce it. You still need to deduce it? Han Fei waved his hand and said, It's easy. Look at this technique. It's only spirit level. It's not a big problem. Xia Xiaochan sat down in front of Han Fei because her lower body had turned into a fishtail. As soon as she sat down, her tail was about to move aside. She didn't care that Han Fei was looking at her tail at all and stared at him. Do you have any deduction techniques? Will you get hurt if you use this kind of technique? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. What do you mean? Xia Xiaochan narrowed her eyes and stared at Han Fei. I should have noticed it. Back then, Uncle Master Faceless mentioned that he would give you a low-level disguise spell technique. But what did you give me? Thousand Faces technique, demon level, divine quality. Han Fei smiled dryly. I got it by accident. Xia Xiaochan tilted her head in disbelief. What about the majestic mystic spell? It's also demon level, divine quality. Can you get a heaven-level, divine quality one if you stay on the Scattered Stars Island for a while longer? Han Fei looked embarrassed. Needless to say, he really did think about it. After the Snow God's Temple, he had considered upgrading the majestic mystic spell. However, on the Scattered Stars Island, if he upgraded it, he could increase his strength by 5 times with a casual use. In that case, he would be too talented. It would be too high-profile. Now, after being reminded by Xia Xiaochan, Han Fei realized that it was indeed necessary for him to deduce the majestic mystic spell. However, he realized that he was still too poor. Even the majestic mystic spell required tens of millions of points of spiritual energy to deduce. He only had a little more than 40 million points of spiritual energy now. How much spiritual energy would it cost to buy a personification technique? Xia Xiaochan stared at Han Fei. See, you don't know what to say, do you? So, you must have a deduction technique, and it must have side effect. Han Fei said timidly, if I tell you that the side effect is that you need to consume a lot of spiritual energy, do you believe me? Xia Xiaochan's eyes widened. You admit it? Don't you have tens of thousands of spiritual fruits? Han Fei silently took out a jade slip and handed it over. Xia Xiaochan was confused. She took it and looked at it, and then her face changed. Demonic vein divine art? Heavenly level divine rank? Hiss. Break the demon vein barrier and obtain a demon vein that can grow without any obstacles? Xia Xiaochan's eyes widened. You deduce this too? Han Fei wondered if he should take out the demon god scripture. However, on second thought, the Fei God Code was definitely not an ordinary cultivation technique. A simple deduction would cost 1 billion. Was this something an ordinary cultivation technique could achieve? Indestructible body only cost 100 million. The void fishing art only costs 100 million. Perhaps the next level would be even higher. But what would the next level be like? At least that was when he was a peak-level hidden fisher. Han Fei thought for a moment. Don't be too excited. I deduced it by accident. Xia Xiaochan was speechless. Why can't I get it out by accident? However, Xia Xiaochan was not stupid. Just by looking at the introduction of the demonic vein divine formula, one could tell that it wasn't simple. It could already break the demon vein barrier. Was this something that an ordinary person could create? Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but feel sorry for Han Fei. Did you use all your spiritual fruits to deduce this? Han Fei coughed. Well, more or less. Xia Xiaochan asked. You even vomited blood from the deduction? Han Fei said awkwardly, that was just an accident. Xia Xiaochan turned her face away. Idiot. Han Fei patted her tail. Go, go, go. Go back and continue your cultivation so that you can be fully transformed sooner. Now 2 half-mermaids are missing. I think the higher-ups have noticed it. It's only a matter of time before they find this place. Right, when you're done with your cultivation, see if you can dig a hole under the spring of demonic demons. Xia Xiaochan was stunned. How can we dig a hole under the spring of demonic demons? You're a human being. You can't withstand the demonic qi. Han Fei smiled casually. I'm fine with it. I can absorb a little. If I can't, Master Hexagon can do it. I'll hide in its door and you dig out from below with it. The hexagon starfish said, Starfish can't. Starfish can't absorb that much demonic qi. Han Fei said angrily, Shut up. If I say you can, you can. You can also set up an array for yourself. It won't be a problem. Han Fei changed the topic and looked at Xia Xiaochan. Go and transform the demonic qi. Don't wait for them to come. You haven't transformed yet. Where can we find demonic qi then? The hexagon starfish said, Actually, spiritual energy can be transformed into demonic qi too. Bam! Han Fei threw a stone at it. You talk too much and you're so capable. Why don't you go to heaven? Poochie. Xia Xiaochan was amused by them. She immediately dived into the spring of demonic demons. If you can't deduce it, don't force yourself. We can always find a chance to improve our strength and catch more half-mermaids after we get out. Han Fei knew that even if he got the advanced human simulation technique, it would only be a simulation technique and couldn't transform him into a human being. So, Han Fei deduced it without any hesitation. Then, a string of information popped up. Advanced human simulation technique. Demon level, low quality. Introduction. This is a technique for sea demons to transform their bodies into human beings. They can simulate the behavior and dynamics of human beings to achieve the control of human beings. Practicing the human simulation technique can help improve the usage of combat technique. Derived technique. Low-level shape-shifting technique deduction cost. 0/2 million. Han Fei was amused. This was cheap. It only cost 2 million points of spiritual energy. Although it cost 2 million points of spiritual energy to deduce a demon-level, low-quality technique, it was still a great improvement compared to the fish transformation technique. He deduced it. This time, Han Fei didn't even look at it. The low-level transformation technique was too low-level to be suitable for him. He decided to deduce it to an advanced level first. So, Han Fei spent 5 million to deduce the advanced transformation technique from the low-level transformation technique. He spent another 10 million to deduce the demon transformation technique from the advanced transformation technique. At this point, Han Fei discovered, to his surprise, that it was finally out. He had spent all his wealth but failed to get it, but he managed to get it with less than 20 million points of spiritual energy. A notification appeared in his eyes. Demon Transformation, Heaven Tier, Mid-Quality, Introduction. The Siren Transformation Technique allows the user to transform their body into that of a human and mimics the meridians of a human to a high degree. This allows the user to slowly cultivate most of the human combat technique. He was familiar with the meridians of the human body and was basically no different from a human. Derived Cultivation Technique. Demon Spirit Transformation Deduction Cost. 0/20 Note 1. Easily seen through, often exposing demonic aura in battle, even unable to maintain the transformation technique. Note 2. Spiritual meridians above level 6 are required for cultivation. Han Fei's heart surged. Finally, it's here again. The demon transformation was clearly immature, so the demon spirit transformation was definitely the right choice. As for the rank 6 spiritual pulse? Haha, Xia Shaochan has a growing spiritual heritage. At this moment, although he didn't know exactly what level she was, she had become such a perfect mermaid, so her spiritual heritage must be above the 6th level. Keep pushing. Demon Spirit Transformation Heaven Rank High Quality Introduction. See Demon Transformation. He could transform his body into that of a human and mimic the meridians of a human, allowing him to easily cultivate most of the human combat technique. However, if they cultivated the major human professions, they would basically be no different from humans. Derived Cultivation Technique. Demon Spirit Transformation Deduction Cost. 0/50 000 Note 1. His true self may be exposed at the most critical moment. It's hard to tell if he doesn't expose himself on purpose. Note 2. Spiritual meridians above level 7 are required for cultivation. Who? Han Fei suddenly stood up and grinned. He was about to inform Xia Shaochan of the good news, when he saw that a tremendous amount of demonic aura was crawling into Xia Shaochan's body. Han Fei simply dragged the hexagon starfish over and asked, "What's going on?" The hexagon starfish rolled its eyes quickly. "I don't know. It seems that she is actively absorbing demonic aura, right?" Han Fei said angrily, "What do you mean by seems? If she is, then she is. If she isn't, then she isn't." The hexagon starfish nodded. "Yes." Han Fei simply sat down at the entrance of the cave. "Okay, let's wait for a moment." While waiting, Han Fei copied the demon spirit transformation. He planned to give Xia Shaochan a surprise after she was completely transformed. As it turned out, he waited for a day and a night. Xia Shaochan hadn't woken up yet, but Han Fei sensed the quakes from the wall. Han Fei's face suddenly changed. Not good. Why has someone come so quickly? Han Fei couldn't have looked more awful. At this moment, Xia Shaochan was still cultivating. If someone disturbed her at this moment, the consequences would be dire. 6 hours later, the wall was shaking more and more violently. Suddenly, Han Fei felt a touch of perception, and that perception actually swept over him. Shoot! An expert! Han Fei's face changed greatly. His perception hadn't reached the wall yet, but the other party had already scanned him. What did this mean? It meant that the other party's perception was even stronger than his. Han Fei wasn't being narcissistic, but there shouldn't be anyone among the hanging fissures whose perception range exceeded his. Even for hidden fissures, how many of them could perceive 40 kilometers away? Han Fei didn't think it was possible. In any case, it meant that the other party was at least a hidden fissure, and definitely not a beginner hidden fissure. Han Fei immediately gritted his teeth, grabbed the hexagon starfish, and pressed it on his shoulder. His eyes were cold. Seed, it's up to you whether or not you can resist this demonic aura. If I'm doomed, so are you. F***CK. The hexagon starfish said in horror, "What are you doing?" "No." Swish. Han Fei simply crawled into the spring of demonic beasts. Up above, a half-mermaid expert roared, "Damn it! It's really a human being. A human being is trying to destroy the demonic aura barrier. Get out of the way. I'll dig it out myself." Rumble, second. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 733. At this moment, Han Fei didn't know who was bombarding the belly of the mountain. However, this person was extremely strong. He must be a leader among the half-mermaid. After only one blow, rocks fell and almost pierced through the belly of the mountain. Han Fei grunted when he rushed to the center of the spring of demonic qi. As the demonic qi surged into his body, Han Fei felt that his eyes were changing and being covered by crimson. Inside his body, spiritual energy and demonic qi collided violently, causing him minor injuries. Seed, come on. Han Fei had absorbed demonic qi with the seed. However, when he was invaded by the demonic qi, he passed out. This time, Han Fei tried to guide the demonic qi to the seed. However, he found that the demonic qi wouldn't listen to him at all once it entered his body. A small amount of demonic qi was fine, but such a large amount of demonic qi made Han Fei's mouth and nose bleed. Fortunately, after Han Fei was injured, the seed did move. It began to slowly revolve and absorb the demonic qi. However, to Han Fei's surprise, not only did the seed move, but the bead of demonic qi in his body also began to glow. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. What was this bead? Han Fei knew that it was called demonic qi. The master of the snow god's temple named Bingxue Chuling once told him that. However, he didn't know how to use the demonic qi. Unexpectedly, it began to move at this moment. Han Fei immediately dragged Xia Shaochan with the water control technique and shouted with bloodshot eyes, "Attach." Because Xia Shaochan had dug demonic stones once before, there was already a hole in the cave in the belly of the mountain. At this moment, Han Fei stirred the 9 chains and drilled into the ground like a drill. Boom! The belly of the mountain was bombarded again. Han Fei sensed that the wall was about to explode. He was greatly shocked. The half-mermaids were really fast. Did your ancestors work in the drilling industry? Even drilling rigs are not as fast as you. However, as soon as Han Fei spread out his senses, he was shocked to find that his senses were all shattered by the violent demonic qi, and he couldn't sense anything at all. So, he didn't know when the other party could break in. Forget it. Let's dig first. Shwa, shwa, shwa. Han Fei was so anxious that all the blue sea wandering dragon daggers left his body. The 10,000 swords returning to origin transformed into a long dragon of light and shadow, drilling directly into the ground. Boom! The belly of the mountain opened, and a half-mermaid in a golden battle suit came out with cold eyes. Behind him, some of the weaker half-mermaids were immediately hit by the demonic qi and stepped back. The half-mermaid said, "Everyone below the level of a sea demon, retreat. Everyone else, activate the Sea King's secret technique, put on your battle suits, and activate the water shield." In front of this half-mermaid leader, a barrier of white light was blocking the demonic qi. However, his eyes were full of doubts. How could a human resist such a violent demonic aura? In fact, Han Fei didn't seem to be able to resist it. Inside the cave, he drilled into the ground like a human drill, but he was even scarier than a drill. Even a drill was not as fast as Han Fei. However, Han Fei discovered, to his shock, that there were demonic stones down there. There were low-grade demon stones, mid-grade demon stones, high-grade demon stones, and even a few supreme-grade demon stones. Han Fei's face changed immediately. No wonder the demonic qi here was so violent. Return. Han Fei didn't refuse. Although the demonic stones were useless, it was faster to collect them in Forge the Universe than to dig them out by himself. Besides, when he tried to absorb them, except for the hexagon starfish, Little Black, and Little White, the rest of the nine-tailed mantis shrimp would become more or less violent after absorbing them. There were so many demonic stones here that even he was about to go crazy, so he simply threw them into Forge the Universe to reduce the demonic qi as much as possible. As a result, thousands of demonic stones were collected into Forge the Universe, and the violent demonic qi inside the belly of the mountain was weakened by 20%. My lord, is that really a human being? Why do I feel that he doesn't look like one? My lord, he can't survive after entering the demonic qi barrier, can he? The leading half-mermaid frowned. The demonic qi is too violent and can tear apart all senses. However, whether that guy is a human being or a demon, he's dead. No one can survive such a violent demonic aura. My lord, is it possible that he is a top expert? The half-mermaid shook his head. Impossible. If he were really a top expert, he wouldn't run away when he sees us. If he has the strength to rush into the demonic qi barrier, wouldn't it be easy for him to kill us? Unfortunately, it's too late to inform the 10,000 Demon Valley now. Otherwise, the experts of the 10,000 Demon Valley will definitely find out the truth. Han Fei had thought that in such a large mountain range where his perception couldn't penetrate through, it wouldn't be easy for the other party to find him so quickly. However, it only took a little more than a day for the other party to find him. It seemed that he had underestimated these half-mermaid. At this moment, Han Fei's muscles were tense. Even though the seed in his body was spinning and the demonic qi was flickering, Han Fei was still bleeding from his mouth and nose, and his whole body began to bleed under the impact of the demonic qi. At this time, Xia Xiaochan had slowly woken up. Seeing that Han Fei was covered in blood and was still crazily drilling down, she immediately understood what was going on. Xia Xiaochan said anxiously, "Big Starfish, open the door." The hexagon starfish was also swaying at this moment. Its 6 eyes were scattered, and it kept throwing arrays on itself and Han Fei, trying to block or avoid the demonic qi. But in fact, it could only block a little bit of the demonic qi, not all of it. At this moment, the 6 claws of the hexagon starfish were spurting demonic qi out like fire-breathing plugs. Whatever it absorbed, it spewed out. This was quite a talent. Hearing Xia Xiaochan's call, the hexagon starfish came back to itself. With a burst of purple light, the next moment, Han Fei was put into the door by the hexagon starfish. With a thought, Xia Xiaochan separated some metamorphosis water and wrapped the hexagon starfish. At the same time, she turned the metamorphosis water into a mess-swallowing worm to take over Han Fei's work. In fact, Han Fei had already dug very deep. Xia Xiaochan originally thought that after digging down for another 100 meters, she would be able to find a direction to dig out. At that time, it would take the half-mermaids a lot of time to find her. Although the periphery might have been blocked, it was not a big deal for Xia Xiaochan. With the metamorphosis water, it was not difficult for her to run away. Even without the metamorphosis water, as long as she rushed to the surface of the sea and escaped on the wind god boat, no sea demons could catch up with her. However, as soon as Xia Xiaochan started to dig less than 50 meters, an emerald green color appeared in her eyes. It was a large amount of spirit-awakening fluid, which dumbfounded Xia Xiaochan. The hexagon starfish was shocked. "I'm rich. There's so much spirit-awakening fluid." Unfortunately, at this time, Han Fei was crazily absorbing demonic qi in the door of the hexagon starfish, and his whole body emitted a weird red color. He looked like a man of blood. The channel was drilled open, and the spirit awakening fluid gurgled out. In the blink of an eye, Xia Shaochan and the hexagon starfish were wrapped in it. And the spirit awakening fluid was still coming out. The hexagon starfish immediately filled the door with spirit awakening fluid. Seeing that Han Fei was a little injured, he poured a large amount of spirit awakening fluid on Han Fei. Chilla. When the spirit awakening fluid encountered the weird demonic energy in his body, it was like pouring a basin of ice water on his head, making him shudder and open his eyes. Puff! Han Fei vomited a mouthful of blood. A large amount of spirit awakening fluid was submerged into his body and turned into a mysterious power, which was soothing the demonic qi. The redness in Han Fei's eyes lessened, and he asked in shock, "Where did the spirit awakening fluid come from?" The hexagon starfish said, "We fell into a pit of spirit awakening fluid. This is all spirit awakening fluid. I'll give you back 10,000 kilograms first." Han Fei was stunned. A pit of spirit awakening fluid? Wasn't I in the spring of demonic beasts? Why am I in a pit of spirit awakening fluid again? Han Fei immediately said, "Open the door and let me out." The hexagon starfish exclaimed, "Ah, then what about the demonic qi in you?" Han Fei looked inside himself, only to find that the seed and the demonic energy were still devouring the demonic qi crazily. Besides, the spirit awakening fluid seemed to be soothing the demonic qi and increasing his body's tolerance to it. They seemed to be transforming his body, just like a body cleansing. Han Fei said, "I'm fine. Open the door. Don't try to keep it to yourself." The hexagon starfish was speechless. There's so much spirit awakening fluid. At this time, the hexagon starfish saw that Xia Shaochan was also crazily absorbing the spirit awakening fluid since she fell into it. Immediately, the hexagon starfish opened the door and urged, "Hurry up, or there'll be no more left." No more? With a swish, Han Fei came out of the door. In the next second, he was shocked. Damn, how much spirit awakening fluid is there? However, Han Fei saw that Xia Shaochan was floating in the spirit awakening fluid at this moment, emitting a holy blue light and a lot of dense white air. Seeing that the hexagon starfish was still stuffing spirit awakening fluid into the door, Han Fei slapped it. "Stop! Let Xia Shaochan absorb it first." Han Fei sensed it. He looked around and found that there was not as much spirit awakening fluid as he thought when he first came out. However, there were definitely more than 100,000 kilograms. In the blink of an eye, at least 20,000 kilograms of spirit awakening fluid had been taken away by the hexagon starfish. The hexagon starfish didn't feel wronged. Anyway, it had taken a lot. If it didn't digest it quickly, it would be taken away by Han Fei in the end, so the hexagon starfish lay on Han Fei's body and absorbed the spirit awakening fluid first. Seeing that Xia Shaochan was crazily swallowing the spirit awakening fluid, Han Fei thought for a moment, about 100,000 kilograms, it shouldn't affect Xia Shaochan if I take 10,000 kilograms. Anyway, the demon spirit transformation had been developed. So, with a thought from Han Fei, Little Black, Little White, Nine Tails, Little Gold, and Little Fatty all came out. As soon as these guys came out, they were stunned. What's going on? Master made a fortune? The next second after they came out, these guys began to swallow the spirit awakening fluid crazily. Han Fei's eyes flickered. He didn't expect to dig out a piece of spirit awakening fluid by accident. If there was no accident, all of them would advance to level 40 this time. Third. Asking for votes, end of this chapter.